Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the NXTGEN Racing Intercontinental Challenge Championship in the GT3 class, as brought to you on the sim racing platform as Assetto Corsa Competitione on PC, in collaboration with the SimGrid and also Coach Dave Academy. Tonight marks round 5 of the 5-round calendar. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the season finale, and with it, here is the schedule, all times in GMT or UTC. GMT standing for Greenwich Mean Time. In approximately 14.5 minutes time, we'll be getting underway with the final drivers briefing, where our drivers will be told the ins and outs with regards to any particular rules that apply in qualifying and the race tonight at our final circuit. And straight after that, we'll be getting underway with the qualifying session, the 15-minute qualifying session, to determine who will be on pole for the purposes of the race. Now, ignore what it says there about it being a 90-minute race. That is a typo. Tonight's race starts at 7:45, much like usual, but instead of being a 90-minute race, it is a 2-hour race, 120 minutes. It is the 2-hour Super Endurance Special, and as a result, it will be a case that our drivers are pushed a further 30 minutes to determine who is going to be our winner, not only in the race tonight, but also our winner in the championship. We're going to have winners and losers, of course, and all the points are on the line here at our final circuit. And after the 2-hour endurance race, we'll be bringing you those post-race podium interviews with our top 3 finishers at approximately 9:45 tonight. In the commentary box, you'll have myself, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And as for tonight's broadcast, it's of course available on 3 media platforms of your choosing. Firstly, the official NXTGEN Racing YouTube channel, that's NXTGEN Racing on YouTube. Alternatively, if you are Facebook inclined, you can always tune in via facebook.com/groups/NXTGEN Racing. Or last but not least, if you're more of a Twitch person, you can always tune in via twitch.tv at TX141, my personal Twitch channel. But more importantly, coming away from the media platforms, let's introduce our senior partners, without whom it would not be possible to bring you this series. And they've been with us since the start and with us to the very end. We start off with the SimGrid. Who are the SimGrid? What do they stand for? And why are they so dearly important to not just us, but also the wider sim racing scene on the Assetto Corsa Competitione on PC? In short, the SimGrid is a place for amateur and professional sim racers to compete against fellow drivers in leagues and endurance events for Assetto Corsa Competition, and also more recently expanding into R Factor 2 and even, I believe, to a small degree into iRacing as well. But the primary focus being on Assetto Corsa Competition on PC, although there are even rumours, as I come to understand it, that they're looking to expand into the console sim racing league scene. But the SimGrid is the place to go to if you are looking to take part in sim racing leagues, whether they be for rookies, professionals, or somewhere in between, or even just a casual one-off race for charity, or a one-off race because one is being hosted by a community and it appeals to your liking. The SimGrid is the platform to go for all things league racing based and one-off racing based in the Assetto Corsa Competition, and also R Factor 2 and iRacing expanding into the market there, and definitely worth checking out. And the SimGrid have been supporters throughout this series by providing us with members of their stewardship team in order to support our NXTGEN Racing stewards in ensuring that the live stewarding conducted is fair, honest, and also, when it needs to be, strict, and also helping out with the post-race stewarding and also managing the post-race stewarding appeal process, while drivers have the right to appeal stewarding decisions that are made during and after the race. And the SimGrid have supported us also in promoting the series and making it available for drivers to sign up to, and also hosting all the tables and information with regards to the points. So we're very grateful to have the SimGrid with us from start to finish, and indeed very happy to have them once again, and thank you to them as always. Coming on to our secondary senior partner, Coach Dave Academy. Who are Coach Dave Academy? Well, they are the home of amateur and professional sim racers looking to up their game through coaching, setups and track maps. And if you are interested, why not check out CoachDaveAcademy.com today and take your racing to the next level. For if you're looking to gain a whole second or just a tenth of a second, alternatively find a way to better set up the car for a particular set of circumstances, whether it be wet or windy conditions at the racetrack, particularly the Assetto Corsa Competition, but also more recently expanded to the platform of iRacing, the Coach Dave Academy website is the place to go to, and indeed their Discord as well. Plenty of paid for advice, but also in terms of paid for coaching, and also a lot of free advice as well, particularly on their Discord server. There's something for everyone, whether you're looking to spend or look to scrap something up for free. And indeed, the Coach Dave Academy supports us with regards to our prize pool over the course of previous series, and support us in running this series, the Intercontinental Challenge Championship. And thank you to them once again for supporting us through and through. Now, coming onto the calendar, we have had 4 of our 5 rounds so far. We started off in Japan and Suzuka on the 23rd of November 2021. We then headed to Kyalami in South Africa on the 30th of November. Then it was a very wet Bathurst circuit on the 7th of December. Australia turning things upside down for a number of our drivers, indeed, proving to be very hazardous. And then last time out, we are of course at the American circuit of Laguna Seca on the 14th of December. The key thing about all 4 of our races so far, each one has had a different winner. George Boothby taking the win in round number 1. Danila Cherepenin taking the win in round number 2. And then it was Darren King in full taking the win in round number 3. And then last time out it was Luke Whitehead taking the win in round number 4. And tonight we are at Spa-Francorchamps. We are in continental Europe, specifically Belgium, for the season finale. It's the 21st of December 2021. And indeed it's going to be fast, frantic and a long race ahead for all of our drivers. And after the first 4 rounds, here are the championship standings as they currently stand going into tonight. Now, as you can see, looking at our top 10, Luke Whitehead is currently our championship leader by only 7 points ahead of Danila Cherepenin. The difference between the two of them, a slightly greater sense of form and consistency by Whitehead compared to Cherepenin, but the two have been inseparable and indeed both having 1 win to their names, and it is the case that both drivers are looking to try and take that Drivers' Championship home. And in terms of how it all plays out tonight, Luke Whitehead must finish 1 place behind Danila Cherepenin in order to take the championship. If Cherepenin wins this race, it's Whitehead who has to finish second because there is a 5-point delta between first and second. Any greater gap between the two, then it is the case that Cherepenin would take the championship win at the final checkered flag. If they both finish further down the order, then we'll need to do a little bit of deciphering for you to get an idea of how it would all play out, but we're expecting them both to be towards the front. Indeed, the pressure is on Cherepenin to take the advantage and get ahead of Whitehead over the course of tonight's races and then see how it all plays out. But let's not count out some of our other drivers here. Tinko van der Velde in P3, the Dutchman having a difficult time earlier on in the season but really coming into his own form and ruined what was a missed opportunity of a win at Bathurst. Indeed, if it had worked out differently, you can imagine that van der Velde would be right up there in the midst of our top 2. But to be fair to him, he is only the best part of 14 points off of our championship leader right now. And if both the championship leader and second place man have a difficult day at the races, then could Tinko van der Velde snatch away the championship win come the end. Then you've got a gap of what is 37 points to Dylan Tan in P4. The Singapore in there in the Ferrari 488, our fastest and highest performing Ferrari driver by a considerable margin, and Tan will be looking to try and hold on to that top 5 finishing position within the championship standings when all is said and done. And the same applies to George Boothby, who in the end caught out Laguna Seca by a stop and go 30-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane in a very close contest with Luke Whitehead. We were potentially going to see Boothby become our first repeat winner in the series. It wasn't to be. Indeed, the Porsche driver now on course to try and snatch away P4 from Dylan Tan when we reach the checkered flag tonight. Outside our top 5, Andres Mesa only 4 points off of Boothby and looking for an opportunity to finish in the top 5, as is Oleg Zavolov in P7. Harry Phillips, Marcus Fox and Christian Nembrini, all of our drivers completing the top 10 there and all looking to try and finish within the top 10, if not pursue the top 5 come the very end of the season standings. And the one to keep eyes on in particular is Christian Nembrini in P10. Because as we look from his 150 points to outside of our top 10, we can see he is only 2 points ahead of Christian Krivic right now. And the Aston Martin Racing V8 Vantage driver would love to finish in the top 10, I'm sure, after what has been a consistent campaign, but perhaps not always worked out the way he's wanted it to. Outside of P11, Raymond Mooney there in P12 on 145 points. Indeed, an opportunity for Mooney to potentially get into the top 10 when all is said and done. Kevin Gellan as well. We know that he likes to push hard at Spa. Could it be an opportunity for the Ferrari driver here to end on a high after what has been a very frustrating season for ITR in general as a team, i.e. the Intruder Racing team, but Gellan in particular really having a difficult time at the races, and I think feeling as though a lot of his pace has been locked up and not deployed as much as he would like. Konstantin Soldatov and Darren King, they're completing our top 15, and then Pavel Pushkarev on 134 points in P16, only 5 points ahead of Vesfield there, and again at Vesfield, and much like Gellan, another ITR driver who's been frustrated in some races, although Phil, to be fair, has put on some classic displays, none more so than his defensive driving versus Tinko van der Velde at Kyalami in round number 2. Vasily Anufriev there, a further 13 points off of P17 in P18, and then Maher Haritojo and Ivan Shematinsky completing our top 20. Outside of our top 20, meanwhile, Chris Zoiger there in P21, the Swiss driver having a difficult time in this season so far. Can he end on a high 110 points to his name at the moment, or will Luca Filippi potentially jump him and jumping his way into the top 20 from 108 points going into this round? Matteo Morana there in P23, only a point ahead of Rainer Effenstedt and Michael Pembrun there on what is 101 points in P25. Meanwhile, Killian Raimin in P26 ahead of Benjamin Nassili, Andreas Sorensen, Cyril Pantera and Ivan Fornes there, completing our top 30, albeit we had the retirement of the Joker Sim Racing team driver Fornes earlier on in the season. And then as we look outside of our top 30, Dennis DeMarco there in P31 on 68 points. Can he get a good result tonight as Nestor Majid in P32? Meanwhile, indeed the Salvadorian will be looking to try and end the season on a high, as indeed many drivers will. Matthias Servalet there in P33 ahead of Walter Lux and Leo Boulet, who we've unfortunately had to say goodbye to after round number 4. He's had to retire from the series, although we do wish him all the best, of course, for what is the ITR driver. Lucas Seidel there in P36 with Andrew Jacqueline, Harry Spears, Mattia Bakker and Lee King-McGee completing our top 40. And then coming on to our final 10 drivers in the standings, Giovanni Izzo there in P41 ahead of Emil Blaine, and then Mike Crute unfortunately retired from the series, Cormac Ryamin in P44, Sanjin Blecic in P45, Alexander Shashinov, Alexei Yuzhigov, Artem Abakumov, Trond Överland and Alex Kopsov there, completing our standings from P1 all the way down to P50. Outside our standings then, let's take a look at the circuit. Tonight we are of course at the Circuit des Spa-Francorchamps in Stavelot, Belgium, a 20-corner circuit, an infamous circuit, whether it's raced in Formula 1 within Blancpain or now known as the GT World Challenger Series or other series as well. This circuit is famous and it needs no introduction, but of course we're giving you an introduction to the circuit, and thank you to Will Pittenger from Wikipedia.org for providing us with this brilliant track map. The circuit split into 3 sectors, starting off with the high-speed Sector 1, which culminates with the Kenwell Straight, but it starts all the way up at La Source, turn at number 1. La Source, the very first corner, and then it's got the long run up the hill through Uruguay and Radio on turns 3 to 5. The trickiest sequence of corners on this circuit, you could argue, that hit you hard and fast, and it's all about that confidence and trying to attack those corners flat out in dry conditions. Sector 2 being the more corner-orientated sector, which starts off at turn 7 with Les Combes and concludes with the first part of Stavelot at turn 15. And in sector number 3, another high-speed run from what is Stavelot 2 at turn 16 all the way down to the bus stop chicane. The slowest pair of corners at turns 19 through to 20, and that completes the entirety of the lap. Now, as for our rules, we are using the same rule set as always. The balance of performance used for all cars featured in this series is the base 2019 variant as made available in Assetto Corsa Competitione on PC with update 1.8. And with regards to the race, there are 2 mandatory pit stops which will require our drivers to take on a litre of fuel, but changing tyres is entirely optional. If our drivers decide to do the entire race on a single set of tyres, they'll save time in the pits, but of course they will be vulnerable come the end to the tyres fading out and losing their overall performance. And there is no defined pit window in this 2-hour race. Our drivers may choose when to pit, and we have seen time and time again drivers try to go for very different strategies. At Laguna Seca, we saw a number of drivers decide to split away from the common trend of trying to go as deep as possible, and instead the first stop in particular was conducted as early as possible to get clear space on track. The only driver who did something very, very different, if I remember correctly, was Christian Nembrini, who decided to take his 2 pit stops right at the end of the race with only 15 minutes to go. He went longer than anybody else, and in the end it worked out. He was able to jump a sizable portion of the field by just staying out on track. Well, we are right now only a minute and a half away from our driver's briefing. As we look to live screens right now, we can see that there is a bit of rain over the Spa circuit, and indeed it is the situation right now where we are hearing highly variable conditions here at Spa. We have had some rain, we've had some dry conditions, and I think it is the case that there are going to be changeable conditions over the course of the entirety of the 2 hours, and that is going to really spell trouble for a number of drivers and also spell positives or a little bit of inspiration for other drivers here. Some will be praying for wet conditions, others will be praying it stays dry throughout, but the one thing's for certain right now, with unpredictable weather, it's only going to make things even more difficult. Indeed, unpredictable results come the end of it, and I think it's all going to start off in qualifying. If we have rain in qualifying, that could shake up the field, and if we see the circuit dry come going into the race, well, that could see the field oscillate back and forth, and if we get any rain midway through the race, we may be seeing more than just the 2 mandatory pit stops, and we'll have to wait and see how that all plays out. Now, I have just had it confirmed, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, that Dennis DeMarco, whilst I believe you will be seeing him at the circuit right now, it is the case, and we saw him in the standings there, Dennis DeMarco does have a race ban, and we're just looking at Dennis DeMarco right now, the Team Ballers eSport driver, and this is for stewarding offences in the previous rounds. He's accrued it, so as a result, I believe, whilst we will be seeing him briefly take to the circuit in practice and qualifying, if he does does take part in the race, he'll be immediately disqualified from the race, and that's very unfortunate for DeMarco. But that is, of course, the calibre of student that we are deploying. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is time now for us to hop over to the driver's briefing room for what is going to be our final driver's briefing of the series, and we're just going to quickly sneak in there whilst we've got an opportunity. Now, making sure not to deafen the drivers in the room already. Of course, this driver's briefing being conducted virtually in a virtual Discord chat room, but you can imagine this would be the equivalent of the driver's briefings that you hear about in series such as Formula 1, where all of our drivers are brought into a large boardroom and they are given the lay of the law by the race director. In this case, our race director, of course, is Kevin Smith, the NXTGEN Racing ACC GT3 organiser. He is a big proponent and indeed a big supporter of all things Assetto Corsa Competizione, and particularly in running NXTGEN Racing's Assetto Corsa Competizione PC-based series. So if you want the guy to go to know more about the series and how it's run, Kevin Smith is your guy. As I've seen, he's just arrived in the room, and very shortly now he should be getting us underway for that driver's briefing. And just give us a moment, ladies and gentlemen. I think Kevin Smith he's just left the room. I think he's just gone to get his briefing notes. He will be back very shortly indeed. But in the meantime, all of our drivers have piled into the briefing room as it currently stands. And we are now just waiting for Kevin to return here. Perhaps he's gone to get himself a warm cup of coffee because it is a little bit chilly at the Spa circuit. But regardless, here he is just back in the room. And I think he's just shutting the door now. And here he is.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back for the final driver's briefing of the season, as we are at Spa tonight for round 5 to conclude the championship. We have just a couple of things to run over. Of course, variable weather is on, as you have all seen the server settings. And we do appear, since resetting the server for tonight's race, that we have some rain, so please bear that in mind. If it is raining and you've accidentally picked the wrong tyres at the start of the race or qualifying, there will be no return to garage to be used during qualifying at all, and also no queuing in the final sector. Please use your outlap, of course, to find space on the track and make sure you can all get a good qualifying lap in. In regards to the actual race tonight, it is 120 minutes long, so it is a 2-hour race. It's extended by half an hour for the final race of the championship. There is still only 2 mandatory pit stops to be made. Of course, for this to register, you must take a minimum of 1 litre of fuel during that pit stop. Tyre change at both pit stops are totally optional and up to the drivers. In regards to last week's student as well, just in case anyone has not seen the post which was put out approximately an hour ago, we have a qualifying ban for Vaca. This is due to not being in the server to receive the penalty last week at the race. And we also have a race ban for Dennis DeMarco, and this is due to an accumulation of severe penalties which also could not be applied last week. And it is unfortunate that Dennis can't join us tonight, but due to the accumulation of penalties, it's unfortunately going to be a race ban. And other than that, guys, if anyone has any questions, please speak up now or post them in the chat and we'll get them answered as soon as possible. If everyone is okay and ready to go, we will forward to the race in 1 minute. And I would like to wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a good time with your families, as I won't get to speak to many of you after the race. And good luck, everyone. Have fun. You're now free to leave.
So we heard there from Kevin Smith laying down the law, and we did hear about the qualifying ban for Matteo Vacca in particular, and also for, it was Matteo Vacca, and also the race ban for Dennis DeMarco. But no questions have come in right now from any of our drivers, so as a result, we are good to go, and we head back to live pictures right now. You can see everybody parked up in the pits getting ready to go racing. Now, if you had to ask me who is the driver I think we need to watch out for the most, I think it is Tinko van der Velde. Now, why do I say that? We can't quite see him completely right now, but the one thing to know about the McLaren driver is he has got the bit between his teeth. And what do I mean by that? Well, he knows that he missed out in the rainy conditions at Bathurst on taking the win, and I think the McLaren driver tonight would love to end the season by being our 5th winner in 5 races. Indeed, he would like to seal off a very strong championship campaign with a win, and indeed, if he picks up the win, that will put a huge amount of pressure on both Cherepenin and also Whitehead, because whilst Van der Velde is the outsider, he could always snatch away that championship win or get involved in that championship battle. As we are now good to go for qualifying, ladies and gentlemen. It is 15 minutes and all of our drivers will be getting out onto the circuit as soon as possible, and you can see that right now we have got some rain, but within the next 10 minutes that rain is going to stop and the circuit may dry up, so qualifying is going to be a challenge here. And we say that because you can imagine that right now any laps that are set within the next 5 to 6 minutes, well, those laps will essentially form the wet part of the qualifying, but once that rain stops and the circuit starts to become drier, it's damper than normal dry conditions, but it does start to dry up, the lap times are going to come down. So I think a number of drivers right now may actually be just sitting there in the pit lane and waiting for this rain to go away. They may not choose to put in any laps whatsoever, and remembering as well that return to garage is not permitted over the course of the qualifying session, so our drivers want to come into the pits in order to change their setup on the car and put a new set of tyres on, or change from wets to slicks, for example. They've got to go all the way around and pull into the pit lane before they're allowed to jump into their garage effectively, so that only adds to the risk versus reward nature. I think qualifying is going to be a hugely complicated session in terms of knowing when to strike, but it's going to be a fantastic one because of it, as we see Raymond Mooney right now making his way down through Pullen Corner at turn number 12. We will bring you an onboard lap very shortly with our drivers, one of our drivers, as they head on around, and we'll give you that overview. But as we can see here, Mooney making his way around right now in the Porsche 911. We are aware that the Porsche isn't the strongest car here at what is the Spa-Francorchamps circuit. It's been a very strong car over the course of the season as the Porsche 911, but it's not the strongest here at Spa. Indeed, we are expecting the Porsche to actually struggle to a degree here compared to some of its other cars, but indeed I am sure our drivers will be pushing it to the absolute limit all the way on through. As we say hello to all you guys and girls in the chat, I hope you're all doing well and looking forward to Christmas. Indeed I am, but the thing I've been looking forward to most is seeing how this all goes down tonight, and I hope you're all doing well, you're smiling. Feel free to say hi in the chat, do not be shy, and in fact let me know who you're cheering on and also what you're expecting to happen today, who you're predicting to win all 30, who's going to take the championship. As we see Mooney, they're getting it very wrong but catching the car very well, and I think he's been inspired recently by the Ashes cricket series, because if he can catch like that I think he might be quite a good fielder. But he makes his way through at the final 2 corners, and we jump on board with Mooney then to take us around for a lap of Spa-Francorchamps in wet conditions. So coming out the bus stop chicane then and charging down towards turn number 1, heading all the way down to La Source Corner does the Scotsman in the sim racing masterclass machine, and coming into the braking zone there, approximately 75 metres, may brake later in dry conditions, and as he emerges from the corner here, balancing the throttle initially before charging through the right hand kinker 2, flat out through 2, getting ready to attack Uruge and Radion. Now going up here in the dry, he would try to go flat out, but here into turn 3 at Uruge, he goes into the left hand here, lifts off the throttle for the right hander of foot and just clips the apex curve of 4, and you can see the slide of the car and those wet curbs catching him out massively there, and indeed Mooney getting it quite wrong and not able to go through there entirely with confidence right now. But I think it's not worked out as the track is damp, and indeed that rain not heavy enough in order to really put those tyres to good use. I think Mooney's going to need another crack as we just wait to see other drivers coming around the circuit right now. And with Mooney having that moment there instead, we now look to Vesfield, who I think is going to try and continue, and we hop on board with the ITR driver as he takes us around then for the resumption of lap. We've gone from one Porsche to another here, and now it's the Swiss of Vesfield who tries to carry on the lap. Will we see him make his way through Rouge and Radion successfully? Well, he comes on through here and balances the throttle very nicely, avoids the apex there of turn 4, instead goes a bit wide to avoid clipping the slippery curve, and makes his way out of Radion and now through the right hander of 6 onto the Kimmel straight here. The fastest Porsche of the circuit in terms of straight line speed, and as he makes his way down into the braking zone into sector 2, he goes braking down to Lacom at the 100 metre board there at the start of the left hand curve, and going all the way down the gearbox to third gear in some cars, second in others, and now going through the right to left to turn 7 and 8, flicking the car to left here before pulling it across the apex of 9 and getting on that throttle when he feels the car's cleared the apex, and he can go on the exit curve there to steady the car before braking into the downhill corner of Bristol at turn at number 10. And as he makes his way through the right hand here, having to wait, be patient, it's a downhill off camber corner, and now heading into turn number 11, X corner. It used to be known as No Name, but now it does have a name, and that is in honour of Jackie X. And as he makes his way out there, running onto the runoff curve, and now heading down towards Coulon corner here, the long left-hander, the double apex left-hander, where you turn in early and then you just simply balance that throttle and then stamp on the throttle as you make your way out of the first part of the apex and through the latter part of the corner, and now coming down the hill towards turns 13 and 14, the campus chicane here, the medium speed chicane. And as he comes on through 13, you want to stay nice and tight and then put the car in the middle of the road to turn into 14, and very nicely done there by Phil. You can see the composure he's demonstrating as he makes his way out 14 now into Stablo 1. He comes to the end of sector 2 once he clears this corner, and now heads into sector 3 as he makes his way into the wider corner of Stablo number 2 here, running on to the Jean-Paul Ferrier straight, and as he makes his way out to 16 and onto the curve straight here, making his way all the way up towards Blanchimont corner. You'll see heading through the double left-hander here, the left-hand kink of 17 first, which is entirely flat out, and now into Blanchimont at turn number 18 here. Will we hear him lift? It is a lift here because of the wet conditions, and as he makes his way down towards the braking zone for the bus stop chicane, now getting ready to go heavy on the brakes here, braking all the way down, and drivers coming all the way down to first gear in these two corners in order to get the car stopped through engine braking and also get the best possible acceleration out of the corner. And as Vesfield makes his way to the end of the lap, he completes the lap. What's it going to be from Vesfield? It's currently a P3, 6.5 tenths off of Zabolov, who has taken provisional pole. But do remember, already that rain has stopped, and the rain has stopped much sooner than we anticipated, albeit we're now 6 minutes into this qualifying session, and now those drivers who went out on wet tyres, or in terms of the wet compound, well, will we be seeing them jump in to go onto slicks anytime soon? The ambient temperature is only 15 degrees centigrade, but our track temperature has come up to 22 degrees, and with that track temperature, we can imagine that any standing water is going to very rapidly evaporate as our drivers continue to make their way around there, as we see Vesfield coming down at the Kemmel straight. But we look a little bit further around, we can see Emil Blaine here is the case, the Dane making his way into turn number 1 through La Source. And I had the chance to catch up with the NRT driver, the Nordic Racing Team driver, in the build up to tonight. And what did he have to say to me? Well, what he was saying is that this season has been quite horrible from his side. He was very candid about what he had to say. He's going to go into this last race with absolutely no expectations. He just wants to have some fun. And indeed, if there's one thing we know about Blaine, he does enjoy the racing. Even if it's not going well, he does do his utmost to try and find the fun in the racing, and I think the attitude in the car says it all as he makes his way down the Kimmel Straight. He's going to see what he can bring to the table tonight. He does love Spa, but since the recent update to Assetto Corsa Competizione with update 1.8 changing a considerable amount of the physics engine, it is the case that he hasn't been able to find all the pace that he used to have at the circuit, but he does love this circuit. He considers it to be an absolute banger of a track, and he's looking forward to tonight's race, and we look forward to seeing how the Dane can get on. He's currently P10, but there are a good number of lap times to go, and as we see Tinko van der Velde there creeping up the inside through turn number 10. Indeed, Tinko van der Velde right now our provisional pole sitter on a 2:26.922, but already you can see the gap in the lap times as he gets a bit of a snake there and clips the tyre wall coming out of X corner there, and I think that was where he just found a bit of water on circuit. The circuit's still damp, it's not dry as of yet, and that just caused him to understeer, and a little bit of front aero damage there, but he just clipped the tyre barrier, didn't go straight into it as he runs wide there at Puan. But I think what Van der Velde is trying to do right now is he's exploring the limits of the circuit to their utmost, and this is something we will see in these changeable conditions. Some drivers will push very hard and try, they will run off circuit, but they'll try to find where the water has dried up and where the water still is, so they know how far they can push versus the conventional dry line. And we can see behind him right now, you've got Luke Whitehead who's following him around. And I think Whitehead is doing this tactically. What he's doing, he's following a driver who he knows is fast in qualifying, and he is using Van der Velde to get an idea of exactly where he can push versus where he cannot push. You can see Van der Velde running wide there out of Stavlo 2, and Whitehead now ahead, but he's got a very limited number of corners left now, Whitehead, and I think this has worked out quite well for him as he makes his way into Blanchimont corner. Now, through turn 18 he goes here, still not quite flat out, but getting closer to flat out, and now he will be going to the end of this lap. And what can he do? Our championship leader right now, he's got quite the times to beat. Cherepenin right now P4 and in the pits as it currently stands. And as he makes his way through the left-hander here, he comes out of the final corner and across that timing line. And what's it going to be from our championship leader? It is going to be, in terms of lap time, it's a 2:26.912. But I think that lap may have been disallowed due to track limits, so it's not actually registered. He's got to go again, and that is not good news right now, because if things were to finish as they currently stand, Whitehead will be starting P18 versus his championship rival, Danila Cherepenin, the S&P Racing Esport driver, up into P4 and charging it down towards turn number 7, down towards Lake Commons. It means as he heads on down there, it is a sizable gulf, and that's something that Whitehead will not want to see for much longer. He will want that gulf to be closed down massively. As we see a little bit further back here, Wild Things Racing's Harry Phillips making his way through Lake Commons. And when I had the chance to catch up with Harry Phillips, I only had a brief moment whilst he was getting into the car. He was saying that it has been a crazy tough season. He's had some bad luck, but he feels he's got the pace for the top 10, and Spa is the last chance to try for a top 5 finish, so he'll do his best to try and achieve that. And if we know one thing about Phillips, he loves a challenge, and indeed he'll be rising to this challenge as best he possibly can. He is currently 3.1 seconds off a provisional pole, but again, these very conditions, we don't know whether that lap that he's previously set was done when it was the rain conditions. I would assume it is, given the delta in his pace versus that provisional pole lap. And everybody right now really out of shape in terms of knowing how much to push. But we have got cloud over the circuit, no rain, just cloud now for approximately the next 5 minutes at least, in fact up to the next 30 minutes. So this could mean effectively we now have the track coming into its prime. It's damp at the moment, but that water is gradually being evaporated away, and when it goes and the track really starts to come alive, that's when the track's going to be its best form. I expect we are going to see our qualifying times jump massively within the final 3 minutes. Dylan Tanner already has jumped into provisional pole at 2:25.627. Those lap times are coming down left, right and centre as we continue to watch Phillips here make his way through Stablo 2 and now up towards West Blanchimont corner. And as he heads on through here, it is a situation, the Briton currently P10. How much further can he move up the order? He is 4.4 seconds over the fastest lap right now, but then again, that 4.4 seconds is not indicative of his overall pace. It's more a case of how the circuit has evolved so much in the space of 5-6 minutes. As he comes down now into the bus stop chicane, he gets it very nicely parked, and as he comes on through the corners here, the Bentley driver using that low RPM band torque to his advantage. He crosses that timing line, and what's it going to be from the Briton as he crosses the line? Well, it's not going to be an improvement at this point, because in fact that was an outlap. My apologies, ladies and gentlemen. He's now on to a lap and he heads on around. And meanwhile, we take a little look further around the circuit, and another driver who I had the chance to catch up with as he was making his way through, and we do seem to have a bit of an issue with regards to his livery not loading there, which is very unfortunate. That is Kevin Gellin, and as he makes his way out of Pullen corner here and down into the braking zone for what is turn number 13 through the campus chicane here, the Intruder Racing team driver, when I had the chance to speak to him in the build up to tonight, is about the last race tonight. This track is supposed to be his best one, so he's really looking for a better result than the previous race, and he hopes to bring some magic to the broadcast, and we look forward to seeing it. And he's looking to enjoy his last race of his first year of sim racing. And remember, Kevin Gellin started sim racing at the beginning of 2021, and he has come a very long way since the start of this year, and really has shown how much he's grown over the course of what is the Next Gen Racing Championships, the European GT3 Championship Season 1 and Season 2, and now in the Intercontinental Challenge. And can he end it with an all-time high tonight? That will be the big question for him, with just over 2.5 minutes to go as he makes his way down into the braking zone. And as he comes on through right now, we do just quickly check in with regards to the stewarding, if anything has come up or through. Nothing at this point in time as he makes his way down across that timing line. And can Gellin improve as he comes across? Well, he's set at 2:34 there, but it's not an officially recognised lap, so I think now he's going all in for this final lap as he comes on through. And we check in with you guys and girls in the chat as we can see their Team Wallace Esports. Good evening to you in the YouTube chat there, and saying, can I know why my pilots were disqualified? I believe that is currently being clarified with the organisers. Unfortunately, I do not have to hand these specific reasons. I've been informed it is due to incidents that occurred at Laguna Seca in particular, and that is why Dennis DeMarco was disqualified, and that was mentioned in the drivers' briefing, Bowlers Esports. But if you'd like clarity on that further, I believe you will need to get in touch with the organiser, Kevin Smith, here, as we continue to watch this qualifying session play out. But indeed, it's unfortunate there, but no, I would love to see them out on circuit, but if that's what the stewards have decreed, I have no power over that. But as we can see here, Gellin making his way around right now and getting it very wrong there through Lecom, and I don't think he's going to have much more time. But as he makes his way around, we can see Nestor Magia here enjoying one of his strongest, in fact, his strongest qualifying session of the season. The Tempo Basket Racing driver here, the American, making his way down the Kimmel Straight right now. And as he comes roaring down into the braking zone for what is turn number 7 here, well, I had the chance to catch up with the El Salvadorian, obviously racing under the American flag, and he was saying to me that he thinks this may be his last race here on Assetto Corsa Competizione in the Next Gen Leagues for the time being, as he feels as though he needs to get better hardware and also spend more time practicing before he does return, which is a shame, but it's understandable, looking to improve his graft over time. But one thing he was saying is if he does return next season, he'll be looking to switch to the Audi R8 if it is available. However, he finds that at this time he's just hoping for a clean race and also looking to get to the finish line safely, make it to the checkered flag, and we'll wait to see whether he can do that. He's currently P13 as all those lap times are still coming on in. And as we look back up right now, it is Dylan Tan, our fastest man out on the circuit, the Singaporean right now, the best part of 1.1 seconds faster than anybody else, as he uses the full width of the exit there of Stablo 2 to his advantage and comes roaring on through the corners. And as he makes his way around, heading up towards Blanchimont, he's looking very strong indeed at this point in time. Dylan Tan, as he comes on through, will he be able to convert this then into his maiden pole position in this series, and also at the same time an opportunity to effectively now what is a brilliant start to the end of his season. Tan has really come alive as well as the checkered flag comes out. Now it is time. Well, Tan's into the pit, and Harry Phillips has got himself into P2 right now, as we are hearing that Konstantin Soldatov has just crossed the line, the M2 competition driver. He is P3, the Russian. Now, where are our championship leaders? Well, Danila Cherepenin, our P2 man at the championship, making his way right now through Stablo 1 and through Stablo 2. He's currently P7, 2.4 seconds off of the fastest, and you can see the reflection off the curbs here where there's still some water, a light amount of water, and in fact the track now going to greasy conditions, and it means the track is coming in alive more, but still it's not the ideal situation. And as we see Cherepenin coming across into Blanchimont right now, will he be able to jump up? And where, of course, is Whitehead in all of this? Well, Whitehead is nowhere to be seen in terms of standing orders as Cherepenin comes through into the final chicane right now. Will he be able to nail it under brake? And he looks as though he's very composed. Indeed, the S&P Racing Esport driver here. This is a critical final lap. Can he get himself up towards the front? He crosses that timing line, and it's P3. Although I say that, and then Harry Phillips jumps ahead, and so Cherepenin will be starting from the second row at best. And meanwhile, Andres Mesa has crossed that timing line and is 7.5 tenths off of Dylan Tan. Now, where is Whitehead in all this? Well, Luke Whitehead has not set a time. Whitehead in the end will be starting P25 at best, and that is a disaster. And Kevin Gellan as well not getting a lap time in, and it looks as though Whitehead starting this far down, this is not good news, and a complete upset for our championship leader. And well, he's now got to find a way through the order, as meanwhile we look further around the circuit and we can see that with this qualifying session coming to the end, we've got Tinko van der Velde right now. And remember, do not discount Tinko van der Velde, because whilst he is an outsider in the championship, as he runs a bit wide there through Stablo 1 and heads into Stablo 2, the Dutchman pushing hard right now. If he's able to get himself ahead of Cherepenin, and if he was to win this race and Cherepenin was to finish, say, outside the top 5 and Whitehead as well outside the top 5, as we see Van der Velde coming on through, and we're going to watch him to the end here. If that were to happen, Van der Velde could take this championship from the pair of them. He is an outside opportunity, but it is the case that he could take this as he makes his way into that final braking zone. How will the McLaren driver do as he makes his way through the right into left sequence? He comes on through the corners here, and as he makes his way on through, will we see an improvement here from Van der Velde? He comes across the line, and it's P6 at most, and well, Van der Velde in the end does not improve enough, and it is pole position that goes to Dylan Tan. What a brilliant pole position from the Ferrari driver, and now we'll be back very shortly for the build up to the race. You won't want to miss it. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we are back then. Apologies for the slight delay in transitioning to the race. We were just trying to fix a slight technical issue with regards to Kevin Gedlin's livery. I don't think we're going to be able to see whether we were able to get it fixed until we do go racing. But in fact, it looks as though it has been fixed, and we wanted to get that sorted because, of course, so much work does go into the making of all the liveries on the cars, and we thought it was only appropriate that we made sure that Team ITR got to have the livery on both of their drivers taking part in tonight's race. But with 2 minutes to go right now, we can see that with regards to the conditions, it's still greasy out on circuit, but we have now got clear skies for the opening half an hour at least. Track temperature dropped down to 20 degrees centigrade in the build-up to setting the grid, and it does mean now that we have a slightly cooler circuit, and these conditions are proving to be very unpredictable, and if anything, that could lead to even further complications when we do go racing over the course of what is the over 2-hour race. And we can see here, we're just hearing it down. Excuse me, we can hear that Whitehead had a lap invalidated when he was on his final lap. It was the case, his final lap was invalidated, and it has not worked out at all for Whitehead, who starts so far down the order, and this is a disaster for what is our championship leader right now, because he has got to come from P25 and essentially finish ahead of his rival Danila Cherepenin, who starts P5, but we can see that looking alongside him on that third row, it is Tinko van der Velde, and van der Velde will be looking at this opportunity. If he can get ahead of Cherepenin and go ahead and win this race, and Cherepenin finishes down the order, Van der Velde could sneak this way, as Team Tonki will be feeling as though there is an opportunity here to make a steal when things are all said and done. But we will wait to see whether that is the way it all plays out, with a minute to go now until our drivers get away for what is the warm-up lap, the formation lap. Indeed, we'll have that double file rolling start as they make their way out of turn 1 heading to turn 2. We start a little bit later than the start-finish line here. Well, when I say the start-finish line, in terms of the timing line, we start, of course, in the run up towards Uruguayan Radion, and that is the official starting point for any endurance races here at the Spa-Francorchamps circuit. But right now, this has already proven to throw a number of curveballs, and, well, we are going to wait to see whether we're going to get even more curveballs thrown our way over the course of the distance. And right now, as we are getting ready to go racing, we take a look into the chat right now, and we can see a number of you in the chat. We can see Bill Books there in the Twitch chat, Katie Eames in the Facebook chat. We can see Katie Eames, how is it the finale already? These seasons are flying by. How are you, Paul? All good here. Doing that very well, thank you, Katie, but it's not about me, it's about the drivers, about you guys and girls in the viewing screens. And indeed, now as we can see, that it's going to be Dylan Tan who takes us away from pole position here. He finds himself in a very, very rare state of mind, and that is, he is our driver who took pole, and indeed now he makes his way around the circuit, and everybody follows suit behind him as we get ready to go racing for the 2-hour period. As we say hello to Rafael Santa Barbara in the YouTube chat as well. We've also got their ITR governor, also Governor ITR. We've also got there in the chat, we can see we have got, by looks of things, Next Gen Ultra in the YouTube chat, Ultra Game in the YouTube chat as well, Histrolly in the YouTube chat, and it is the case that we're hearing that Luke Whitehead experiencing some sort of glitch which kept invalidating his lap times. How cruel, and that is not good news. And Major Nesta there in the Twitch chat just briefly popping in to say that was a good qualifying session indeed. His season best for Nesta Magia, qualifying in what was P11. Indeed, the Salvadorian, the Tecmo Rasket racing driver here, with a great opportunity to end his season on the high. And in terms of number of drivers taking part tonight, 29 drivers registered at the circuit here, and it'll be interesting to see how they all get on. And at the back of the field is Vaca, of course, had that qualifying ban, but there's going to be some huge opportunities. Do not count him or anybody out, as we see Tom Spot there in the YouTube chat saying, go Krivich. And indeed, where is Krivich in all this? Well, he has qualified in what is all the way down in, if we can just find him out on circuit, and just give us a brief moment, ladies and gentlemen. We can't quite see him at the moment as we just look up to the field. Christian Krivich qualifying in P8 when all is said and done, and we can see him here making his way through what is La Source, and not La Source, it's Lecom, I should say, and down towards turn number 10 as we look to the bit of the closer cameras right now. And Krivich changing to the S1 Racing team for the purposes of this season finale as he makes his way around in the rather beautiful coloured British Racing green coloured Aston Martin Racing V8 Vantage, and now makes his way out to 10 and into X corner at 11. Now, one other driver I had a brief opportunity to catch up with in the build-up to tonight was Marcus Fox, the Fox Sim Racing driver, and what the Austrian had to say to me in the build-up to tonight is that it's been a great season so far, and he'd like to mention that the competition has been intense and enjoyable with a lot of respectful, clean driving at the limits, and a big shout out to the race directors, the stewards, the commentators, drivers, and the people in the chat. Indeed, into the people in the chat in particular, Marcus Fox absolutely loves hearing everyone enjoying themselves watching the racing, and last week P8 was a huge personal success and one of his favourite tracks at Laguna Seca, and this week will be a different challenge as the Spa-Porsche combination is a tricky one, but he's going to give it his best shot and somehow try to miraculously finish inside the top 10 of the championship. Well, Fox has got an opportunity, albeit he is starting from P13, so a bit further down the order, but we know that Fox is a very wily driver and he will try to find a way to get around the situation where he's outside the top 10 right now. Do not count him out as finishing inside the top 10 when all is said and done. As we see from looking from Fox right now, so a bit further down the order, we've got Andrew Jacklin here making his way through the corners, as we can see the Food Point Racing driver here from Slovenia making his way through what is the campus chicane, and as he comes on through, he's got Raymond Mooney ahead of him. Mooney really struggling in qualifying, we saw that from the outset, but to be fair, do not count out the Sim Racing Masterclass driver either. We know how strong he can be on strategy. We saw it at Kyalami where he decided to undercut the entire field and he moved all the way up from what was P22 into the top 10 when everything finished. But as our drivers now come into Sector 3 here, and the track is in green condition now. It is a fresh track. We have got a dry circuit, albeit not enough rubber down right now to say it's in optimum condition, but with a dry circuit now forming, this is going to see, I think, a very frantic start to race. We are going to see some drivers who are qualified well out of position due to the changeable circumstances in qualifying. We will expect them to come up through the field, but now we just wait really for Dylan Tan to take us around. He's got a bit longer to go, of course, because remember the timing line, the start-finish timing line for the purposes of the checkered flag is coming out of the bus stop chicane on to the opening straight, but we go racing at what is the run from turn 2 up into Rouge at turn number 3. So we won't be going quite yet, but we can see already Dylan Tan bunching the field up as they make their way now down into the bus stop chicane. And as we look towards the back of the field, we see Kevin Gelling here coming down under brake, and the Intruder Racing Team driver, and this confirmation, we've got his livery all nicely and loaded as well. And one driver to watch out for as well, Cormac Ryan Mean, and the FFS Racing driver here. Well, he's very fast here at Spa. Where will he come from the back of the field? From P27, how far up the order can he progress? As we now look to the front of the field, and it's for Dylan Tan to take us away for 2 hours of racing in our season finale in the Next Gen Racing Intercontinental Challenge Championship of 2021. And it's lights out and away we go for the season finale, and immediately Tan under a fence from what is Andres Mesa. Mesa goes side by side up the hill here. It's too wide from a number of drivers as they come through Rouge and Radion, and as they come over the crest of the hill right now, we look to the early cam, and Harry Phillips already involved in a major moment, as I believe that's Danila Cherepenin who's gone spinning across the circuit. Everybody there getting caught up in a major incident. I think that's at least 10 drivers being killed by the clash, and as they make their way down the straight right now, my goodness, what a start to this race, and an absolute disaster for so many drivers. But meanwhile up front, Dylan Tan has held on to the lead, and you can see here Oleg Sobolov has moved up the order. He's into what I believe is P2 there, but anybody could predict how the race would start, and that is a disaster as we now look back down towards what is our P2 driver, I believe, unless I'm very much mistaken. Further back, Marcus Fox is off into the wall there, and where is that on the circuit right now? Marcus Fox into the wall. It's one of the corners there, and I think he will be heading to the pits as we hear that Raymond Mooney's into the pits as well, and Sobolov in P2. Andres Mesa here in what is P, I think that is P5 when it was a bit further down than that, as we're just seeing all our drivers make their way around right now. But Krivic has moved up the order as well, as our timing screens are being updated. But an absolutely unpredictable start, and indeed a number of drivers being heavily compromised. But the biggest loser out of all of it, or the biggest losers out of all of it, are our major championship contenders, particularly what is Danila Cherepenin, who's jumped to the pits and and could that be their race over? That's the big question as we continue to look around right now. Unfortunately, we can't bring you the replay of what happened due to technical limitations, but we caught a bit of it, and it looked as though multiple drivers involved in an absolutely huge collision coming out of Radion and onto the Kimmel Straight, and that is a disaster for so many as we head towards the end of the opening lap here. And indeed, we did not want to see that, as we can see Harry Phillips, he has rejoined, he's down in P19. Where is Whitehead in all of this? Well, I think Whitehead is right now all the way down in P28 by the looks of things, but soldiering on is the Briton. They were involved in the incident. Cherepenin is definitely into the pits, but after the opening lap, it is Dylan Tan leading by 8 tenths of a second over Oleg Savolov, and it's Tinko van der Velde who is under pressure right now from Vetsfield, and Field has gained massively from this start as they make the way through Lasors, and then we've got Krivic behind there in P5, followed by Christian Nembrini in P6, and then Konstantin Soldatov in P7, and Nestor Majir in P8 as they make the way on through. Then Luca Filippi in P9, the Waller Racing driver. In fact, he's dropped down to P10. As we can see, that is Mikhail Rattel, who's moved up. The Cosmos Racing Team driver has moved up into P9 as they come up the hill for the second time of asking. They come roaring on up here, and both Ferrari drivers going toe-to-toe as they come roaring over the crest and now go charging down to the Kimmel Straight. We ride on board and look back from Mikhail Rattel, and as they make the way down here, you can see Filippi, who's got the overspeed here plus the slipstream. He's going to be looking for the move into Lake Con. Will he be able to get... Will he be able to get it done on the brakes? He goes for it here, and as they make the one through, these two drivers trade place again, but you can see the Waller Racing machine goes wide and drifts onto the apex and brings the car back under control. But Filippi coming in a bit too hot. There were a lot of damage on the rear of the car as well, and perhaps that has compromised him somewhat. As Andreas Sorensen down in P11, then you've got Giovanni Izzo in P12. Then meanwhile, we've got Haritojo down in P13, followed by, well, I believe it's Haritojo, and there it is, it's confirmed. Cosmos Racing Team is Haritojo in P13, and we've got Chris Seiger in P14, and then Benjamin City completing our top 15 right now. A bit further back, we've got Rainer Effenstedt here, who's all over the back of what is Andre Jacqueline right now, and trying to put the pressure on the TG Racing Esport driver is on the Food Point Racing drivers. Behind you've got Vaca and also Ryan Meenan as they come roaring down the hill here through Puon Corner. Now as they come down through the left-hander, we can see it's a situation where Vaca, well, after that qualifying ban, of course, for the penalties that were accrued, and we heard that, of course, in the driver's briefing, it is the case the Team Ballers Esport driver already gaining multiple places here. It's so many drivers losing out, and I believe, unless I'm very much mistaken, Whitehead is in the pits. Now, if they can't get that car fixed, then Whitehead would retire, and I think Danila Cherepenin is also having their car repaired right now. So it is the case that with these two in the pits, it could be open season for Tinko van der Velde, who, if it was to finish as it currently stands, the Dutchman would take the championship by a surprise margin, and that is all because of that incident on the opening lap, which is not the way, of course, we want it to be settled, but that is how motorsport can sometimes occur. But right now, Tinko van der Velde must be thinking to himself, surely I've got this in the bag. But again, remember, we're not even 5 minutes in yet, and anything can happen over the remainder of time. We may see the weather change, we may see the clouds open up, we may see the clouds come back over and the skies start to pour down. You never know what's going to happen, as meanwhile in the battle for the lead, we can see Oleg Zavolov here trying to chase down Dylan Tan, and I think it's the case the S&P Racing Esport driver wants to become our 5th winner in 5 races as they make the way down towards what is Lecom once again. I keep referring to it as La Source. I'll get it right eventually, but as he makes his way on down right now, you can see a little bit further back, we've got Christian Kuric here under pressure from what is Vesfield as they come roaring down the Kimmel Straight. Now Field's going to look for the move, he takes a peek, but he decides, you know what, I'm not going to go for it, and that's because he hasn't got the overspeed. And as they make their way through Lecom through turn number 8 and into 9, Kuric right now in that P4 position, just trying to hold on and go chase after Tinko van der Velde, but he is falling backwards. As meanwhile, a bit further down the order, I'm hearing that Benjamin City is continuing to gain ground. And in fact, in P13 right now, he's gained 2 more places versus Sorensen and Ryan Meenan, and now he's going on the charge after Chris Zoiger here as he comes on through the corners. But as we can see, their Emil Blaine having a retirement due to issues, well, technical issues, and Emil Blaine retiring before even completing the formation lap, and that is the Danes racing career for this series over. As meanwhile, we can also see their Jesus Sengogo number 99 at Kuric, and in P4, of course, and we've also got their PD George P cheering on Kuric as well. as they all make their way on through. And those guys are being in the YouTube chat, of course, but focusing back on the racing here and now. Field continues to put that pressure on as we ride on board here with the Porsche driver in the battle for P4. And he's fallen back a little bit here through Sector 2. Of course, this could be tactical just to give himself some breathing room. Running that close to a driver in front, of course, can lead to the dirty air, warming up the front tyres, warming up the brakes, and that's something that it will be cautious about as he comes charging on through the corners. But as they make their way now up towards what is turn number 18 in towards Blanchimont corner here, going absolute attack. And as he comes through the left-hander here, he's not close enough still. And you can see the Aston Martin there, Courage just pulling away on these straights here, very comfortable, but it's in the corners under braking where Phil closes up very dramatically indeed. It's that contrast to the two cars of Courage there, loses the rear of the car very briefly as we hear the fastest lap has now gone back to Dylan Tan, who's completed his third lap of this race. And as we can see, Courage and Phil both crossing the line, no change between these two at the moment as they make their way down in towards turn number 1 as they come braking on down into the right-hander. And as they exit out the corner right now, it is a situation where I do believe that as they come out, it's no change at the moment, but will we see a potential run into turn number 7 as they come on through and ready on here. And as they come through the right-hander and over the crest of the hill, it makes your stomach churn, doesn't it, as they come over. And you can imagine how these guys attack it, and we saw that in particular, how both drivers got out of shape through the corner and neither one of them able to gain, as Phil literally running on the rev limiter almost now. He's not close enough to look for this move. Instead, he has to wait patiently. But further back, Christian Embrini, who we shouldn't count out here, had a good start, and he's up to P7. And the Cortec Racing driver here gaining, and he's chasing after Soldatov right now. And really, Nembrini here looking at another huge opportunity. But the difference is this time, he's up in the top 10 by simply staying out of trouble at the start of this race and also getting things done right, rather than trying to do it on the strategy and then hold on to the position at the very end. Instead, Nembrini this time finding himself right up there in the top 10, and I think reveling in the opportunity. As meanwhile, further back, we can see Chris Soiger here trying to put pressure on Benjamin Asili, as Asili has passed Chris Soiger. It should be pointed out he passed him into turn at number 7 under braking, and Asili right now really on a charge here. And I think the 488 driver, not just the Ferrari 488, but also the door number 488, if you want it any more confusing, as he makes his way down into the braking zone for Pullen Corner here. It's going to be the case that I think the Cosmos Racing Team driver is really enjoying this experience of being up towards the front and having that opportunity to get a top 10 finish here. A lot of drivers, with the incident that happened at the start, plus also the complicated qualifying session due to the weather, a lot of drivers who wouldn't normally be seen up in the higher positions are now seizing this opportunity to end their season on a high. And as a result, I think they are taking that confidence and they're going to try and go full pelt with regards to deploying it. But meanwhile, a little bit further back, we can see Andreas Sorensen here, the remaining Nordic Racing Team driver after Emil Blaine's retirement on the formation lap. And you can imagine the Dane right now will want to do not just himself proud, but also the team and his country proud as he makes his way through Stavlo 2. But back here getting the better run with what Sorensen getting hooked on the apex curve of turn 2, and as they make their way in towards the left hand here, you can see Vaca already getting ahead, and instead it's the case Sorensen backing out. Meanwhile, Cormac Ryan meanly got ahead of what was there. I believe that's Jack. Well, no, that's not Jack, my apologies, that is Nestor Magia there, but I think he ran off circuit to do so. Now whether he'll give the place back or whether it will be just a track limit warning, and remember our drivers are subject to 3 warnings if they've gained time, and after the 3rd warning it is a drive-through penalty, so we could potentially see a drive-through penalty come into play as Nestor Magia right now makes his way down towards turn number 1, having lost that position to Ryan Meenan coming up through at Blanchimont corner. We're only at 10 minutes into the 2 hours right now. Indeed, what a lot of drama at the start. And meanwhile, down in the pit lane, I can tell you that Danila Cherepenin still he's made his way out on circuit right now. He's down what is the best part, I believe, at least a lap, if not 2 laps. And Cherepenin making his way on through. And in fact, he is down the best part of what is, I think, 3.5 laps compared to our leaders. And Whitehead, meanwhile, is right now at least a lap down on the leaders. So Whitehead has come out ahead of Cherepenin, but both drivers have now got an absolutely huge drive on their hands if they want to win this championship. But meanwhile, the driver who's there to sweep it all away is currently in P3, and that's Tinko van der Velde, who is just enjoying this experience. But further back here, looking at a battle which is still building up. Krivic still holding on to P4, but you can see that Field behind him and really trying to keep that momentum on. But again, it is a long race for these guys. I think right now Field may be of 2 minds whether he wants to push hard or instead wait for an opportunity when the pit stops come around as they make their way through the right and left of campus here once again. Now, meanwhile, looking from them to a bit further down the order, I can tell you that there is a growing battle between what is Chris Zoiga, and also I believe it is the case that chasing after Selly here. In fact, he's fallen back to a degree, but the CHF Motorsport driver here will be looking for the bigger picture, currently in P12, as Selly tries to make his way after Giovanni Izzo in P10. And speaking of Izzo, you saw him there go through the bottom of your camera, and as Zoiga makes his way on through, Ryan Mina just a bit further back, 2 seconds back, as they come into sector number 3, and as they come charging through, Zoiga gradually losing out versus Selly through the corners. In fact, running a bit wide there through Stavlo 2, and he's got to be careful about running that wide on a continuous basis, because he could be subject otherwise to warnings from our trackside stewards, and if he gets enough of those, it's a drive-through penalty, as we were saying earlier. But right now the field has opened up a little bit, and I think it is in part due to the carnage that occurred in the run out of what was Radion onto the Kemmel Straight. That does happen every so often, and now it's all about our drivers trying to find their feet and get themselves back into this race. Now, of course, for the drivers who had to go to the pits, the one thing they will have tactically as an advantage, if they exploit it this way, if they can exploit it that way, of course, given the distance of the race, is they will have cleared one of their mandatory pit stops. Now, how does that change the dynamic? Well, I can imagine any driver in that pack who decides to start the race on a low amount of fuel or a moderate amount of fuel will now probably go for a full fuel tank and try to essentially make that fuel tank last as long as possible, so they only need to fill up once again come their second pit stop. Meanwhile, other drivers, of course, will try and factor that in terms of if they had a full fuel tank to begin with, they'll even top it up a little bit more and then carry on the race, and we'll have to wait and see how that all plays out. But indeed, a lot of drama. And speaking of drama, we saw Luca Filippi earlier get it a bit wrong coming into this very corner as he goes charging after Rattel once again here. He got it wrong in the run into what was at the time into Lecom. He parked on the apex there of turn 8, of course, out of respect for his fellow racers who are coming on through, but now he is chasing after Rattel once again as he makes his way through. As we see Emil Blaine there in the YouTube chat saying that he's got Sorensen to cheer on all the same. And indeed, Blaine, it's good to see that you are still in positive spirits despite it all. I know it's a rough start, but in cheering on your teammate right now, I'm sure he will appreciate you cheering on from the sidelines. That's what that team spirit is all about. As we can see at Davey 27 full there in the YouTube chat as well, saying go, 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 Krivic. And where is Krivic right now? Well, he's still holding off Vesfield. No change between these two as they make their way through the campus chicane once again. But I can tell you one thing that is building up to a potential change here, as we do ride on board with Sorensen for a brief period of time here. The Dane making his way after Haratojo right now, and as they come through Pulm Corner here, know how Nesta Magia, they're going a little bit deep, and Haratojo looking for an opportunity. Now, will the two in front fight one another hard enough to potentially cost one another time, as Sorensen can close up here as he just continues to watch from afar? And as of course what will be in his mind right now, he'll probably be getting the word in his ear to say try and close up to the guys in front as he rides a little bit higher there on the apex curve of what was turn 14. But we look from him to the battle just ahead, and Nesta Magia here in all sorts of trouble coming out of Stavlo 1 and through Stavlo 2, and there's contact between the two drivers as Nesta Magia runs wide for a bit of contact from what was Haratojo, and Haratojo there continues racing, and you can see Sorensen gains one position, and I think Haratojo at this point is trying to lift off, or at least it looked like he lifted off initially to try and give the place back, but now he has got the Dane between himself and the driver who he made the contact with. Now, how will they negotiate this? This is the big question. If Haratoja does plan to give it back, or whether he'll wait for the steward's verdict, of course, which he can do as they make their way through the right into left. Of course, giving the place back is not automatically going to mean that our driver does not get a penalty, although our stewards will see that as great racing respect if it was deemed that that driver caused the incident and then they've given the place back out of fairness. But I think in this case, Haratoja is going to carry on doing the racing and just focus on what the stewards have got to say once it's all said and done. As he makes his way through turn 1, you can see Sorensen right now going a little bit deep into La Source, and as he comes through 2 and heads towards the Rouge once again, it does look as though that Haratoja's been able to break away, and instead it's the Nordic Racing Team driver who now has the pressure of a fellow Aston Martin racing machine chasing after him, as this is the battle for P16 as they come rip roaring up the hill once again as they make their way on through and head onto the Kimmel Straight. No change between these three for the time being as they make their way on down, but meanwhile looking back up towards a battle for P4, you can see Vesfield much closer this time. As we emerge from X corner, we ride on board with the Swiss here for the Intruder Racing Team, and as he comes down into the braking zone, it's the case into Boom Corner. You can see the difference in body language between the two cars. Field wanting to be more aggressive towards that opening apex, whereas it's the case that Courage decides to take that wider line and settle the car in. Now, as they make their way into turn at number 13, will we see Phil close up once again, or will he fall back? I think he's going to fall back for the time being. He's not going to be able to close this up too rapidly, and indeed just watching right now And I think it's all these little subtleties as well, and they've got the time in order to be able to work one another out. And I think what Field's trying to do, he knows he's stronger in Sector 2, but he's trying to see where he can gain the time on Crouch in Sector 3 in particular, because that's the sector where Crouch is so strong coming out. And you can see here the gap that's opened up onto the straight. The Aston Martin very strong on the straights compared to the Porsche by default, and we do reckon that Field may be running quite a bit of downforce here, as was his way to do so in the European GT3 Championship Season 1. If he's taking that similar approach here, that maybe cost him some straight line speed compared to the Aston Martin front. And Spa, to be fair, one of those circuits where high downforce will work very well when you're the lead car in a battle, but when you're the chasing car, it can hamper you to an extent, and that may be what we're seeing right now as they make their way onto another lap here. They go on to lap number 8, and as they come down to the braking zone right now, no change between these two, but you can see Phil, they're going for a deeper line, but I think he's locked up to a degree on the brakes. But Vive's nailed the exit, and that's keeping him well within half a second as they go through 2 and on towards Uruguay and Radion. And as they head up the hill right now into turns 3 through to 5, we stay on board with Field through the signals of corners, and just looking at the confidence, a brief lift there, and he just drifts a little bit wide. And indeed, I think it's the case, the loss of front end downforce there on the splitter of Field's car due to the dirty air coming off the back of Courage car is what cost him that momentum as he was making his way on up. But otherwise, if he'd nailed that, I think he would have been as close as he's ever going to be in the run down towards Lake Com to try and go for the move. But meanwhile, speaking of things that are getting close, we can see our race leader right now. He makes his way through what is turn number 10, and he has got Zabolov closing up behind him right now. The S&P Racing Esports driver just gradually bringing that gap down. That last lap between the two of them, Zabolov was 0.2 of a second faster, 2:19.3 for Zabolov, meanwhile a 2:19.5 for what was a Tan. Now, of course, it could just be a small mistake. It could just be the way they're managing this point of the race. It doesn't mean that Zabolov is necessarily the faster driver overall so far, because otherwise Tan would not have been on pole if it was the case that Tan was not as fast as Zabolov. But it is one of those situations right now where I think we are starting to see Zabolov put a bit of pressure on and just really settling into this pursuit. But look behind him, Tinko van der Velde is now in P3 as well. He's been in P3 for some time, but he's now in a very visible P3 compared to the two race leaders as the top 3 make their way through the third sector. And as van der Velde there really pushes the limits to the extreme and comes out to Stavlo 2 and up towards Blanchiment, you can see he is getting closer to that opportunity, to the site of what is the top step of the podium as he makes his way in towards Blanchiment corner here. And our driver's now really attacking these corners, and that McLaren in particular, you have to rely on the downforce of the McLaren 720S so much as he makes his way into the braking zone for the bus stop chicane. You have to have the faith in the car. The British machine absolutely made to work this downforce as he comes out to the bus stop chicane and goes on to another lap. And in terms of lap time comparisons on that last lap, to give you an idea, Dylan Tanner 2:19.1, Oleg Zabolov a 2:19.3, Tinko van der Velde sets the fastest lap of the race so far at 2:18.6. Van der Velde is pushing. He is going for the leaders right now. He knows it's his opportunity. As meanwhile, speaking of a driver who's seizing opportunities, we can see here Cormac Ryan Mean, where he's looking for the move on Zoiga here. And as they come through the bus stop chicane, he's going to try and go for the switchback here into what is turn 20. And as they emerge from the corner, can he get the overspeed in the run down towards La Source? Does he want the overspeed? To really the question right now, because if he goes to the move here, then he will be vulnerable, of course, going on to what is the Kimmel Straight, assuming that Zoiga is able to stay with him through Rouge and Radial. They make their way through turn 1. And it is the case, the FFS Racing driver right now really starting to put some pressure on. As you can see, Giovanni Izzo has been passed by Benjamin Aseli, who's up to P10. And Izzo falling back to an extent right now as we look to the head of this pack. And as they make their way up the hill right now in a straight line fashion, you can see it's the case. Zoiga having to take the runoff there, getting it wrong through the corner. And as they make their way through turn number 6, Zoiga's going to carry that momentum through and look around the outside here. Now, Izzo has the right to defend, of course. And as they make their way on through, is Zoiga going to carry enough momentum to get it started? I think he is, but I think there's also going to be a significant track limits warning to what was Chris Zoiga for making that move effectively after what we saw on camera. But of course the stewards will make the final verdict, what looked to be a cut across turn number 5. But now Izzo falling backwards as we can see Cormac Ryan Mean, and now the next driver to look for that opportunity to take on the Cortec Racing 1 driver as they make the way through Brussels corner at turn number 10. And as they come down the hill right now, we check in with our stewards, and I believe the stewards are furiously at work at this time as they all make their way on through the corners. corners. And as we continue to watch what's happening here, Ryan Meenan looking to put that pressure on it through what is put on corner, but he can't quite find it right now as he makes his way through the downhill left-hander at turn number 12. But he's got the momentum here on the inside. That's going to put him on the outside for Campus as they come down towards turn 13. But Ryan Meenan's going to be late on the brakes. He's going to try and hold it all the way round. He can't quite do it. You could see the car there just understeering, slightly under braking. He went for the move, and to be fair, if he'd been able to stay fully alongside, he would have had the inside into 14. But Ryan Meenan just finding the limits of the brakes on the Ferrari and instead has to back off, but looking very fierce. Here's Ryan Meenan as he makes his way through 16 and up towards West Blanchemont once again. Been running wide there as the track conditionings continue to improve, although the track temperature has dropped by degrees centigrade right now, and that could hamper our drivers' tyre pressures later in the race, indeed tyre temps, as we can see Ryan Meenan continue to push on through what is the corner of turn number 18, now heading down towards bus stop. He's got the momentum here. Surely he's going to go for the move on the inside. I do not think Izo's going to be able to defend this initially, unless he can stay alongside into 20. He's still there, and Ryan Meenan's got the outside as they emerge from the corner, but he's had to take to the runoff area there in order to give the space. Now they make the way down towards what is turn at number 1 in towards La Source, and as they come into the braking zone here, side by side still, Ryan Meenan making sure to give what is the only limited space he can to Izo, and as they make the way out of the corner and now head up towards turn at number 3, it is the case that Ryan Meenan feeling that pressure to get a move on, indeed wanting to push an Izo right now, tucking in behind after that battle. A great move by Ryan Meenan in the end, sees him move up to P12. He'll now go chase down Chris Soiger for P11. As a bit further back down the order, I can tell you that Andre Jacqueline, meanwhile, in what is, well, my goodness, my apologies, Andre Jacqueline, we're just trying to see him, and he is here in P19 chasing after Blecic as they make the way down. Senjin Blecic ahead of him, and as they make the way in towards the Rouge, you can see Jacqueline considering trying to go side by side into turn 3. He doesn't go for it, but he's right there, and the Food Point Racing driver here looking for an opportunity as they make the way onto the Kimmel Straight. They come charging on down after what is only 22 minutes of the race passed, and as they come down towards the braking zone, will he go for the move? He's got the overspeed. He goes to the inside into Lacombe here. Remember, it's a right into left, and Blecic can hold on the inside into 8. He may have an opportunity to come back, but I think Jacqueline gives him the space, but in the end has the overspeed, has his nose ahead, and as they make the way out to 9, it's all said and done. Or is it as the Bentley driver comes back to the inside into 10? He goes late on the brakes, and as they make the way through, it's brilliant battling, but the door reopens, and as they come on through right now, you can see Blecic there trying to shut the door, but not in time as the Slovenian finds his way on through, and look behind, that is Luke Whitehead behind them, who is a lap down as it currently stands, and Whitehead trying to get back into this race, but he's got to unlap himself over multiple cars right now, and Whitehead will be feeling the pain because he knows he's got so much pace to get on through, and you can see there Blecic releasing Whitehead to let him go and potentially have Whitehead pull what is the car in front of him back towards him, of course that being the car of Andrew Jacqueline as they make the way through the campus chicane. But Whitehead right now trying to push on in every form, as we're hearing that Danila Cherepenin has retired. They got the car fixed as best they could, but they've decided it's not going to work, so Cherepenin is out of this race, as is Marcus Fox. From what, well, no, Marcus Fox is still out on circuit, my apologies ladies and gentlemen, but Cherepenin I believe has retired, so we have lost our P2-man championship. He will not be having a shot at taking this championship come the end, but meanwhile Whitehead is going to give it everything he can to try and get that championship win when all is said and done, as he makes his way here with Blanchemont. He goes round the outside of where is Jacqueline. This is a man who wants to win this championship. He will not want it taken away from him because of the incident on lap 1 and a disastrous qualifying session as he makes his way through the bus stop chicane. But can he get himself back onto the lead lap? That's the first thing he's got to do. He has got a long way to go as he's just gone on to lap number 10. Our leaders are already on to lap number 11, and where are they on lap number 11? They're halfway around, so right now it is the case that Whitehead is 1.5 laps down and still trying to hunt after it. But remember, it is the case that this man right now, Tinko van der Velde, who if things were to finish as they stand, would be your championship winner, the Team Tonki driver here, as he comes down through what is Puon corner through turn at number 12. He is hunting down Zabolov and Tan, and well, it's one thing to catch, it's another thing to pass, and both Zabolov and Tan will also see this as a huge opportunity to be what is not necessarily championship winners, but particularly for Tan right now, this would see him finish right up there in the top 5, and Zabolov as well. If either of them were to take the win here, it would be a huge ending to their season. Also, they would love to be crowned the 5th winner in the 5th race, as meanwhile Tinker van der Velde presses on to be that 5th win in the 5th race, but also for him, he'll probably be thinking there's more at stake here. It's that championship win, which is so critical. As 25 minutes pass, we've still got just over an hour and a half of racing to go, and plenty more to come. As meanwhile, further down the order, we can see Chris Soiger here in P12. He has got Giovanni Izzo behind him. Izzo staying close to him right now as they make their way through the corners, and as they come down towards where Stavlo won at turn number 15. No change between these two right now, but you can see Chris Soiger really pushing as hard as he possibly can here. But he has fallen back from Ryan Meenan over the last couple of laps, but then again, it could be a different strategy, a different approach on the cars as they make their way around and through the corners once again. But we are seeing there, and indeed that's just been pointed out to us. Thank you, Guru Gadget, in the YouTube chat as well. We have got rain on the forecast in 30 minutes time, ladies and gentlemen. The continental European weather is coming back to haunt everyone in the race, and that could open things up massively here. This could really change the dynamic of the whole race. In 30 minutes time we are due rain. Now we believe it's initially light rain, it's not going to be heavy rain, but of course it could intensify. You never know what could happen, but our radar says it's rain in 30 minutes, and right now this could really open up the proceedings, but we'll have to wait and see. Of course there will be some pit crews down there, none other than, I would presume, Whitehead's pit crew right now, who will be doing the rain dance and then some, in the hope that that rain can come and really throw this field upside down. But meanwhile we look at Chris Sawyer, who is trying to break away from Izzo, and I think he's done it now. He's broken away enough, and as he makes his way down to the Kimball Straight, we look back up to our battle for the lead, and we can see here it is Dylan Tan leading by 8 tenths a second, with Tinko van der Velde not too far behind. But van der Velde, I think, has over pushed the car over the last couple of laps, and also, to be fair, he has had to get past what is Raymond Mooney, who is a lap down, and that has probably cost him some time through the natural order of making your way past the driver who's a lap down, as is always the case in motorsport. But Tinko van der Velde making his way down into the campus chicane right now. Indeed, that last lap, a 2:19.3, where Dylan Tan a 2:19.1, Oleg Zabolov a 2:18.7. But Van der Velde still holds the fastest lap of this race, a 2:18.6, and he's not giving that up any time soon as he makes his way on through. Meanwhile, further down the order, we can see in the battle for P17, we're looking at our P18 man of Andre Jacklin here, chasing after the Rasket, the Tecmo Rasket racing driver of what is Majir, as they make their way through Lacom and onwards towards Marcel Corner at turn number 10 very shortly. As they make their way on down, we ride on board here with Andre Jacklin as he looks to try and find his way into P17. He's going to try and go all the way around here, or is he going for the cutback? But you can see here Majid deciding to just keep the car nice in the apex there, as is the way through Brazil Corner. Now into X they go, and you can see the difference in lines as Jacklin has to brake really hard there to go through the corner. I think Jacklin likes to take a much deeper line into X compared to Majid, and that caught the Slovenian out, no doubt, as the Salvadorian has opened up a gap for the meantime. But of course he will now commit that knowledge to memory and know, okay, at X corner Majid is going to be heavier on the brakes and earlier on the brakes than myself, as they make their way now down into campus. But I think that was a shock to the senses. It definitely was myself as they make their way through campus chicane here. And you see Jacklin really attacking those curves, as it indeed is Majir ahead. Both of them, they're trying to get those curves to rotate the car even more through the corner, as they make their way now down into Stavlo 1 as they come on through turn number 15 and head up towards 16. It's the case these two gradually getting closer and closer once again, as Jacklin having to balance the throttle through what was turn 16 there, and now make his way in the hunt up towards Blanchimont Corner here as they come roaring down towards the bus stop chicane. Now, of course, what can Jacklin do from this far back? I don't think too much right now. I think he has to just focus on nailing his lines. He goes a little bit wide of apex there at Blanchimont, and he'll have to try and now make it up under braking here at bus stop. Of course, different lines for different drivers, but both drivers using a very similar line here, and in the end, I think they will stay as they are for the time being. As we look to the exterior cameras, in fact look a little bit further up the order right now, and one driver who has been on a charge in at P10 is Benjamin Aseli, and we can see here currently our last driver in the top 10, he is hunting down Luca Filippi, and on the last lap in particular he took 1.3 seconds out of the Waller Racing Machine ahead of him. And here is the Waller Racing Machine, the German driver of Luca Filippi, making his way down into turn number 10. And now whether that was a mistake or a case that Filippi just simply not as fast on the average lap, or running a different strategy which is contributing to him being a degree slower, we'll have to wait and see. But with that rain on the horizon in another 30 minutes, it can definitely open things up. Indeed, that was a little while ago, we said about 30 minutes, so we're now with what is the opening half an hour of this race complete. We've still got plenty of time to go, and that rain on the horizon, a lot of drivers right now will be thinking about that rain. They will know it's coming, they will see that on their radar, they will have been told in their ear by the team principals in teams of what is all the different drivers' garages. And as we see our drivers make their the way around right now. I think for what will be our leaders in particular, the rain could not have come at a worse possible time, because they will have made the break from the field, and you can see that already in the fact that Courage is 13.7 seconds down on our top three. But of course, with that advantage gained, now can they maintain that advantage when the conditions evolve? As we can see, Filippi just staying ahead of Vasily for the time being. And I think that last lap for Luca Filippi may have been a lap which was prone to an error or two, because it does seem as though he's got this now back under control as he makes his way around to complete what is his 13th lap of the circuit. And as he comes out of Blanchimont and down towards the bus stop chicane, looking very smooth right now is Filippi as he comes into that heavy braking zone. Although, to be fair, I say that, Assetto very strong on the brakes, and Benjamin Say really pushing hard on those brakes. And I do think right now the Cosmos Racing team drivers smelling an opportunity to hunt down what would be a fantastic set of finishes for the team. As on that last lap, a 2:20.2 for Assetto, a 2:20.7 for Filippi, another 5 tenths of a second, a half a second gain. And meanwhile, talking about Cosmos Racing, we have got Mikel Rattel here in P8, and it would be a great day at the office for the Cosmos Racing team if they saw two of their drivers finish inside the top 10. I think this will be the first time it's happened in this series, as we can see here Rattel making his way now onto the Kemmel Straight and looking very smooth to boot as he comes charging on down towards what is Lacombe very shortly. But meanwhile, looking from him to a bit further up the order, we look back up towards that battle for what was P4, but now it's a bit less of a battle and more of a bit of a stagnation for the time being. It is Krivic ahead of Field by the best part of almost 3 seconds, and Field just briefly in the background of the camera there coming through Bracel corner. But as Krivic makes his way out of what is X right now, he has pulled an advantage out, and that last lap pulled a further 6 tenths on Field. And I think Field might have resorted to a bit of a different tactic right now. He may have noticed the weather is coming and decided, you know what, I'm going to drive a bit differently. I'm going to back things off and look at preserving the car and getting ready for the condition change. As meanwhile, Konstantin Soldatov, the M2 competition driver here in the number 37 Aston Martin, as he makes his way down to the braking zone for Campus Chicane here, we can see that the Russian really pushing on right now. And I do think for Soldatov, he wants to try and put some pressure on Field ahead of him. But to be fair, on that last lap, Soldatov was 4 tenths of a second slower. But I think now on this lap, he is gaining. So I think Field having to tread carefully here in terms of giving himself the space to Krivic in front of him, but not dropping back too far in order to fall into the clutches of Soldatov right now. Soldatov definitely looking for that chance to go charging after what would be a top 5 finish as they make their way in towards Blanchimont corner once again. And as they come through the left-hander very shortly, it's a situation where I think both drivers there just pressing on and doing everything that they can. But speaking of drivers doing everything they can, we're hearing that Andrew Jacklin has passed Nestor Magia, and now it is the case that Rainer Effenstedt, well, he is now chasing after what is there. He's chasing after Nestor Magia as he comes down through Poon corner here. And Rainer Effenstedt, of course, the TG Racing eSport driver, he hasn't had the best start to this race, but I think he goes on to finish on a much better result as we ride on board with him for the time being, as we see Marcus Fox there behind, who is a lap down and has been given a 5-second penalty from our stewards, and we'll tell you what that penalty was for very shortly. But right on board with the McLaren 720S driver of Effenstedt right now as he goes very deep on the brakes there into Stavlo. One locks the brakes up very aggressively as we see a drive-through penalty for Harry Phillips being provided. And well, this is stewarding decisions now coming on in. We will give you an update on what these penalties are for very shortly. But right now, Effenstedt losing out there with that lock-up into Stavlo, just pushing too hard in the pursuit of what was Nestor Magia. As we look back to the exterior cameras now, what was that drive-through penalty for Harry Phillips, who's down in P20? And of course, Harry Phillips right now chasing after Effenstedt. He is 20 seconds down as it stands, but that gap is only going to open up massively when he does the drive-through, given how long the pit lane is at Spa, because we have, of course, the initial start-finish straight pit lane, and then that carries through onto the old pit lane in order to fit all of our cars. And as he makes his way on down, I can tell you that the number 26 car has received a drive-through penalty for not holding the brakes during the collision. We saw that incident at the start of the race, and the drive-through penalty has been given for the fact that Harry Phillips did not hold the brakes when the incident occurred, and he was involved in it, and as a result, by not holding the brakes, he ended up rolling into the path of car 9 after being spun by car number 177. So that is what Harry Phillips has got the drive-through for, and I believe a huge number of penalties have been dished out for that incident that happened at the start. We're only seeing the ones that apply to the drivers who are still in this race, and we won't be talking too much on the ones that apply to the drivers who are no longer in this race, I should say. As Rainer Effenstedt, they're looking for the move on Nestor Magia. You can see Marcus Fox as well trying to find his way into what is this battle. He wants to get himself past because he needs to unlap himself, but right now Fox having to be patient as we see Benjamin Aselli getting a drive-through penalty as well. So I think this is even going to shake the order up quite a bit, and of course we don't want shake-ups through penalties, but this can happen, and indeed that incident incident at the start was an absolutely tragic start to the season finale, so it's only fair that the stewards do what they need to do with regards to verdicts. As we can see, Ren Everstate here now in a horrible, between a rock and a hard place. So you see he goes defensive there, I think, almost to say to Marcus Fox, look, I know you want to get through, but I want to get this pass done. Or was that an attempt to try and essentially lull Majir into a full sense of needing to defend into pull and corner? Either way, Everstate really trying to come alive through these corners and trying to find his way through, but he can't at the time being, as they make the way now through turn at number 14. And indeed, how is this all going to play out? I think it is going to get a little bit messy soon, because I think right now for Majir, all he needs to do in an ideal world is give himself the opportunity to break away. And how can he do that? Well, if he could get Everstate and Fox to switch places, that would work out perfectly. I think it's saying that is one thing, doing it is an entirely different thing, as we see Majir here trying to go racing down on towards Blanchimont, but it is the case that right now Everstate's going to get alongside here, as the McLaren drivers had the better exit and the better straight line speed. They go side by side there through Blanchimont corner, and Majir returns to the circuit as they almost go free wide, and Fox here looks at as Majir goes to the normal racing line, and Everstate there goes defensive as Fox is now going to try and sweep all the way round the outside. And indeed it is the case that Fox gains the place by simply going outside to inside through bus stop, but Everstate is now going to come back at him, and I think the Austrian here may be uttering a few words of frustration underneath his visor as they make their way down into turn 1, because you can imagine from his perspective he wants to battle for what is P18, but right now he can't, because Fox is trying to unlap himself for what is an opportunity to go racing later on in this race, having been involved in that start incident. Now as they make the way up towards the Rouge Ready, and will we see Fox here getting the move done on Majir for what is effectively to unlap himself and then go on to finish the rest of this lap and potentially try to go on to unlap himself completely. We will never unlap himself completely given his pace versus our leaders right now, but you get my drift when I say he's trying to unlap himself versus trying to get back into the top 20 when this race ends. But right now he's not close enough, as Harry Phillips is into the pits for his drive-through penalty. And as we look from this situation for P18, we look to Benjamin Aselli, who is in P11 right now, and that drive-through penalty for car number 488, I can confirm the drive-through penalty is for avoidable contact, and that was, I do believe, for contact with car number 25 and car 404, whereby he made contact with the rear car 25, which forced car 25 into the side of car 404, which saw them get taken out of the bus stop chicane. So it was an incident later on at the start of the race in the opening laps where Benjamin Aselli was essentially is deemed by stewards to have triggered a freeway incident where two drivers lost out at this corner here, the bus stop chicane, and the Cosmos Racing team driver right now, of course, with that drive-through penalty, will be aware of that, as we see a 10-second penalty for Tinko van der Velde. Now, where has this come from for the number 66 driver? Well, the number 66 driver has received that penalty for what is pushed to pass on car number 91. Now, car number 91 is Andres Mesa. We're not hearing anything else other than that, so whether it was pushed to pass at the start of the race before the incident occurred or later on, well, Andres Mesa is all the way down in P21 right now, but Tinko van der Velde definitely going to be feeling the repercussions. That 10-second penalty, it's not a huge penalty compared to what it could be to drive through by comparison, but 10 seconds just waiting in the pits before they can service the car will bite into his time. But right now with that 10-second penalty, he would still be on course to win this championship, as we are to understand it, as he makes his way on down the hill and heads around towards the campus chicane. But as he comes on through right now, we do see our drivers making their way around and getting ready for the rain. Well, the rain's still a good amount of time away. It's not quite here as of yet, still plenty of time to go before the rain arrives, but it will be on the minds of all of our drivers. Meanwhile, in terms of other penalties that have been applied right now, as we look further down, well, Marcus Fox has received what is a 5-second penalty, and I can confirm the reason for that is he's our last place driver as it currently stands, the number 67 driver. That was for the use of, well, that's for the use of the in-game chat whilst racing, which our driver are not permitted to do so, and that is a slap on the wrist penalty, as he has managed to clear what is Nestor Majir and also Andre Jacqueline in that situation for what is effective P17 now, with Harry Phillips having that drive through a penalty. And you can see Andre Jacqueline making his way on through it and losing the rear end to an extent there, coming through what was turn number 7, but we can see Nestor Majir, I think, has just disappeared down the order. In fact, Majir has got it wrong, And well, as he makes his one through, my apologies there. In fact, a little bit of confusion. Marcus Fox getting ahead. I thought that was Interjecting for some reason. And getting the two cars, they're very similarly covered, but at the end of the day, getting a bit wrong there. And NXTGEN, in fact, still holding on versus Effenstedt as they make the way out of turn 10 and down towards turn number 11. Now, as they make the way through the left hand here of X corner, we can see it's the case that Effenstedt trying to gain that advantage, but he just cannot get close enough to be able to go for the move yet. And there's still plenty of time to go, but he just cannot seem to find a way as they now make the way down through the left hand of Piron corner and on towards Campus. But you can again see Effenstedt getting the momentum out of the corner there, able to carry a bit more speed through the sweepers by comparison with Magian now as they make the way through the Campus chicane. Will he be able to find a way on through? As we're hearing that Benjamin City is in to the pits for his drive-through penalty. As I look out my commentary box, he is making his way on through right now, and I think that's going to drop him a long way down the order, and this opens up opportunities for a lot of drivers who have yet to be impacted by penalties or indeed make a mistake in this race. They could go on to have their season best performance as Magia right now holds on, but now we know on the run up here towards Blanchimont corner how strong Effenstedt is in that McLaren. He's got so much straight line speed by comparison, and as they make the way through the left hand here of turn number 18, it's the case Effenstedt very close, and as they come down towards the braking zone here, Magia goes defensive to the inside. Effenstedt's going to look round the outside, heavy on the brakes they go. Effenstedt goes much deeper here. And as they bring it together through turn number 20, who will emerge the victor as they come out of the corner? Effenstedt has got himself ahead. I think Effenstedt has got the move done in a classic move for what was P18 as they make their way down towards turn 1. And outside to inside run, the McLaren driver gets ahead, and now Nesta Magia looks at the potential comeback later on in the lap or later on in the race as they now make their way out of turn 1 and up towards turns 3 through to 5. As I try to make the way on through. Meanwhile, we look a bit further up the front of the order, and we can see that right now Dylan Tan continues to lead here by 1.3 seconds ahead of Oleg Zabolov here. Our battle for the lead has calmed down quite significantly. We saw Zabolov get quite close about 5 to 6 laps ago. He got within 7/10 of a second and then has fallen back. I think Zabolov right now is testing the waters here of how much to push. And remember, with that rain on its way as well, that could have changed the strategy to an extent. Now, how could it change the strategy given the fact that these drivers right now are on a dry compound? Well, they may be looking at, okay, it could be the case that this race becomes a free stopper. If we see the rain come, we have to switch to wets, then we have to switch back to a dry compound later on in the race, for example. We're not sure how it's going to change the pit strategies, but that's what some of our drivers may be thinking about right now. So it may be the case that Zabolov has decided, you know what, I'm going to stay within 1 to 1.5 seconds of the race leader. I'm going to do fuel saving. I know I can push faster and push harder, but instead, if I do some fuel saving right now, that may save me some time in the pits later on, and I'm always within arm's reach. Both of these two, of course, are lapping very similarly. On that last lap, a 2:19.0 for Tan, who we're looking at, and as we look to Zabolov right now, 2:18.8 for the Russian. So it's not as though Zabolov is falling away. Tan, to be fair, pushing hard. Zabolov also pushing to an extent, but I do wonder who is backing off more than the other right now. Zabolov seems to be there, but not quite right where he could be to go for that potential move for the lead. But meanwhile, we can see Soldatov here talking about drivers who are making a move and trying to push on right now, chasing after Vesfield as they make their way down towards what is turn number 7, down towards Lacombe, and he is getting closer and closer to Soldatov. That last lap from Soldatov at 2:20.8 versus Fielder at 2:20.9. He gained a tenth. We've still got plenty more time in this race. Indeed, we're not even a halfway distance yet, but as our drivers make their way through, we've only just cleared a third of the race, the opening 40 minutes of the 120 minutes. You can see Soldatov looking for that first opportunity here. The Aston Martin driver is now sizing up a chance as we ride on board with the AMR Racing driver as he makes his way out of turn number 10 and into X corner 11. And as he emerges from the corner here, the M2 competition driver will be thinking about how does he play this move when it does arrive, as we can hear that Mattia Vaca is into the pits in P13 right now. So it's our first scheduled stop of this race, and we are seeing on the radar, with anybody wanting confirmation that we are going to be seeing a lot of rain, we've just had it. We have got heavy rain on the horizon in 30 minutes time. We're going to see some initial rain, and then that rain is only going to get worse as time goes on. So this race, whilst it started on a drying track, may be going into its mid-phase on a very wet track, and could it be ending on a wet track as well? We'll have to wait and see. But for Vaca right now, who's in the pit and he making his scheduled stop, his first scheduled stop, I do wonder whether for the Bentley driver this pit stop has come at the worst possible time, because we're not seeing the rain as of yet, but the fact he's doing the pit stop now as Benjamin Asili is also into the pit. Now he did of course have that penalty, but I think he's also opted to come in as our drivers make their way through. In fact, he's cleared the drive through. We'll have to wait and see when that's confirmed, but meanwhile we can see here is the case that Field on the inside defending versus Soldatov, who's gone very deep under braking to try and gain an advantage. He can't quite find it, and as he makes his way out of turn 20 and down towards 1, he continues to put that pressure on him. Soldatov's showing the first signs of a potential move as they go on to another lap, but looking from then to further up the order, I can tell you that Dylan Tam right now does have Zavolov getting closer once again, and on that last lap only Zavolov set the fastest lap of the race. He's brought it down to a 2:18.5. Now I'm wondering whether the S&P Racing esports driver has been given the hurry up from his team, whether he has been told, right, you know what, we've got rain on the horizon, you need to be the lead driver before that pit stop window appears, because when that rain comes, it's all going to be about who is the braver driver to make the switch to the wet tyre sooner than everybody else. Alternatively, who is the one to stay out and be the bravest on the slick tyre versus the wet conditions. That is the challenge right now that is coming, as we can see both drivers making their way down towards Pulon corner, but as they come on through, Zavolov have really starting to mount that pressure, and I think right now trying to find a way to get into the lead of the race, as meanwhile Soldatov a little bit further back continuing to hound Field as they make their way down into what for them is turn number 10 Brussels corner, and as they come through the right-hander right now, the long right-hander, you can see where the Porsche gains on the exit of the corners here, just able to carry greater speed through the apex and get on the throttle earlier, but indeed anything can happen as our drivers make their way on through. As is the case in the chat there, Ultra Gaming saying let's do the rain darts, and as all our drivers continue to make their way around right now, it is Soldatov who is trying to put that pressure on, and he is inching closer and closer with each and every corner as we ride on board here with Vesfield looking back from the Porsche driver's machine as they go through turn at number 13. As they come through the chicane here, this is where the Porsche should be at its most natural, because you've got that body roll situation for a chicane where the car's going from one side to another, but as they make their way through turn number 15, you can see how going through Stavlo here, Phil just not able to open up the advantage he liked as he went briefly onto the gravel there with the rear right tyre, and as he makes his way out 16 here, Soldatov the closest he's ever going to be for a potential run through Blanchimont up into bus stop. There's a long run here now. Phil, to be fair, has got a lot of speed, but you can see now Soldatov hitting the upper gears of the Aston Martin's V8 engine. He looks to move, but he can't quite find it. He tucks back in instead. But Soldatov, to be fair, he's putting the pressure on, but he's also being very respectful in terms of where he applies the pressure. He knows as well there's no need to overfight this right now. They've got a long race to go, and the strategy could open it back up once again. But as they make their way out of the final corner, you can see here Field taking his time, just dragging the car through the apex of 20 to make sure that Soldatov cannot quite cut back in. Soldatov, you could see there, trying to cut back in very tight on the exit of turn 20 to get the run to the outside to 1. Not able to find it yet, as you can see. Field going deep there into turn number 1 and doing that, of course, to give himself the longest straight line run up towards the Aruja Radion here. Field very smart in the placement of the car, putting himself in positions where he's going to be able to get the best possible top speed into these high speed sections, of course, because the Aston Martin behind him very strong on the straights versus the Porsche as they make their way through Radion and now down onto the Kemmel Straight once again. As they come on through here now, Field has to go defensive as Soldatov has found a way to get alongside, and as they make their way into the braking zone here, it's a long run, and as they come up towards Lake On, we can see Soldatov going around the outside, and I think he's got the move done there as Field held on the inside but didn't commit all the way on in, and Soldatov has gained the position there. Here's Field losing out and down to P6, but I think we could see these two come back together a little bit later on. Do not count Field out yet. I think he's got a master plan up his sleeve. Will he be able to deploy it? That is the question. As meanwhile, further up the road in the battle for the lead, we can see our leaders separated once again by 8/10 of a second. It's Zavolov chasing after Tan, but Tan right now doing everything he needs to in this high pressure situation to hold on to lead. Of course, the strategy has yet to play, and we've got a lot of strategy along the way, plus also the rain, which is due very soon. Within the next 10 minutes, we're going to start to see the rain fall, and as our drivers make their way through, as the track just comes into its optimal condition right now, with all the rubber being laid down the circuit, and that track temperature of 18 degrees centigrade, and indeed the track temperature continuing to fall, the ambient temperature continuing to fall. These conditions are not ideal right now, because as everything gets colder and gets wetter, it's only going to be hard to get tyre temperatures up, and particularly on that wet compound, it's going to be the case of whoever goes onto it first will need to try and find that temperature and get those tyres up to scratch as soon as possible, because otherwise they're going to shred those wet tyres before they've even had a chance to be utilised to their full extent. As Zavolov falls back on that lap, he loses out by 4 attempts. I think Zavolov once again put some pressure on, and now he's backed off. He's getting ready to go on the attack later on in this race. Constantly a threat, but never overextending. But meanwhile, Giovanni Izzo down in P12 right now. He's got past Haritojo. And he's chasing after Zoiga here. Is the Cortec Racing 1 driver as he makes his way through what is a turn at number 17 and 18 very shortly. Of course, 18 being Blanchimont corner, heading into left-hander right now as most of our penalties have been cleared, minus Tinko van der Bel's 10-second penalty. And as I say, a lot of penalties being given out to drivers who've retired from this race. Now, how the stewards will deal with that, that's to be decided at another point in time. But we can see here it's the case that he's really putting that pressure on versus what is his rival there, Chris Zoiga, as they make the way down towards turn number 1 once again. They head in towards that braking zone, and as they come on down into the right-hander right now, going into La Source, well, we are going to see that Porsche have the better run initially on exit, but can the Italian Stallion keep close enough here to look for that potential move? We will have to wait and see. Now, with all that in mind, of course, we'll give you a quick update with regards to our championship leader, Luke Whitehead. Where is he out on circuit? Well, he's just gone on to lap 21, and Whitehead, you can see here, going on the way through, as we see a drive-through penalty for Pantera there, and we'll give you clarity on why the number 489 driver's got to drive through very shortly. But Whitehead right now onto his 21st lap. Our race leaders by comparison, looking at Dylan Tanner on their 22nd lap. So it is still the case that Whitehead approximately 1.5 laps down on the leaders right now. I think Whitehead at best here will be trying to target getting himself into what is the top 20, if not the top 10 by the end of this race. But he's going to press on all the way because anything can happen. We've still got plenty of race distance to go. And why have we got a drive-through penalty, you ask, for car number 489, and that's the car of Sil Pantera? Well, let's give you the explanation as to why that is. The drive-through penalty for number car 489, well, we're just waiting for it, and I think if it's not come up on our shooting screen, that means that is for track limits, as the Cosmos Racing Team driver here has run wide a few too many times, and it is the case our automated system has decided he's gained too much of an advantage from it. But meanwhile, looking from him back up towards what was at the time our battle for P12, Izzo versus Zoiga here, it carries on as it was, and they make their way through what is the first part of Campus Chicane, and then head into left-hander for the second part through turn at number 14. And as they make their way through right now, you can see Izzo keeping as close as he possibly can, but not able to find a way in for the time being, as we can see that rain still on the horizon right now. We're waiting for the heavens to open up with the rainfall, and indeed it could be any moment as they make their way now through the right hand of Stablo 2 and head all the way down towards the bus stop chicane. Starts off with Blanchimont, of course, as they make their way into the extended left hand here, and you can see Izzo very close to the back of his rivals. They make their way through turn number 18. And again, whilst he's close, he's not close enough to look for the move, or is he? It's going to be about being bold on the brakes here. He's not close enough to go for it. Instead, he has to wait. This being one of our closest battles on the circuit as things currently stand, as both drivers now come out of the bus stop chicane and go on to another lap. Indeed, hold up a second. The forecast has changed slightly. I'm hearing that, in fact, with regards to in about 30 minutes' time, the rain clouds we did have on the horizon have actually started to drift away to an extent. So we are expecting rain over the course of in about 30 minutes' time still, but that rain is not going to be as severe as I originally thought here. So those changeable conditions around the Spa circuit, the wind blowing in a direction, which is meaning that we're not going to see as much rain as we were expecting on the radar so far, but we'll keep you informed if things do change once again. Now, speaking of change, of course, Andres Mesa right now continuing to charge here, and whilst he won't be enjoying the fact that he's all the way down in P19 with the Spaniard, he will be enjoying the fact that he is battling with Kevin Gellin here, as we can see Kevin Gellin, I should say, in P18 here, the Frenchman, with also a difficult start to this race, being impacted by the start of the race and also a dismal qualifying session. Well, right now he is just trying to keep the Spaniard behind him. I think he will relish the opportunity to take on our championship winner from the European GT3 Season 2 Championship as they make their way through a Blanchimont corner here, and as they come down towards the braking zone right now, you can see as they're heading towards the end of this opening hour, they have both already cleared at one pit. So there was a drive-through penalty there for Andres Mesa. Now, we didn't see that as he comes into the pits immediately here, does the Spaniard. Now, what is that drive-through penalty for on the number 91 car? I'm going to presume if it's not track limits, it's for the opening lap incident. Indeed, if it's still being deciphered what happened on that opening lap, that shows you the extent of the situation. And it is the case that with regards to that drive-through penalty, well, I'm not seeing anything on the stewarding sheet. So as a result, I think that is track limits that Andres Mesa has picked up the penalty as the rain has arrived. And in fact, as the rain's now arrived, you see the wipers are going on for our drivers, and we have got intensifying rain within the next 10 minutes, and then the rain will calm down the next 30. So now this is where it all opens up, because the challenge now is, ladies and gentlemen, as I'm sure many of you will appreciate if you've watched this in real world motorsport, the drivers who are out on all their slick tyres right now, in fact all of our drivers on slick tyres as it currently stands, nobody of course has gone to the wet yet in the dry conditions. It's all about knowing when to make the switch, and one of the drivers of course who used to be very good at making the switch in real world racing was Jenson Button in Formula 1. Now will we see somebody pull off a Button-esque performance here and pick the right time to make the switch and become the rain maestro, or will it be the case that people get it wrong? Well, right now the driver who really has the ability to call the cards here is Dylan Tan. He's our leader by a second over Oleg Zabolov. And right now, it's the case that Tan has that opportunity, of course, to force Zabolov into a position where he pits first. Alternatively, Tan can be the one to pit first and go onto the tyres at the right time. Meanwhile, Zabolov, has to make a calculated decision here. Does he decide to pit before Tan to make that switch, or does he decide, you know what, I'm going to try and stay out with the leader? Because right now, if the two tie one another in terms of their strategies, in terms of they both decide to pit at the same time, which they can do, to be fair. If Tan pits first and Zabolov follows him in, that's fair enough. But then will we see Tinko van der Velde behind him, who's got that 10-second time penalty to serve in the pit? Keeping that in mind, as we see a lot of drivers into the pits immediately. Christian Krivik in, also Konstantin Soldatov in, Mikel Rattel, also Giovanni Izzo. So we've already seen drivers make the switch to the wet compound here, and the circuit right now, greasy but not fully wet. It's the case. That rain's only starting to fall. Is this premature? As we see Andrew Jacqueline, Luke Whitehead in as well. It is a case, a lot of pit stops occurring, as we're hearing that Sanjin Blecic has retired from this race, unfortunately. But will this prove to be the right call for so many drivers, or will it be the case that it's the wrong call? We'll need to wait and see, as our leaders are continuing to stay out here. They do not want to lose track position. They need to hold track position in their minds. They reckon they can stay out a bit longer. And meanwhile, the drivers who have gone onto that wet tyre, of course, it will be the case that when they start to pick up the race time, indeed the pit crews will, not the pit crews, my apologies, the strategists down in the garages right now will be watching the likes of Rattel, likes of Izzo, looking at Jacqueline, Sorensen and Magia, and also getting, looking at them to see whether they are gaining through this situation by going on to the wets. We'll also keep an idea of what's happening with regards to the lap times that we're seeing on our sheets, but right now our leaders are lapping on the 2:25 as it currently stands. Meanwhile, Vesfield, to be fair, well, he's coming to the end of the lap. We'll wait and see what he's going to do, as Field's into the pit. So Field has called it as well. He's decided to come on in, but it's our leaders right now who are staying out. Our top two, in fact our top three, are all staying out, and then Brini is staying with them. And this is going to be a huge, huge risk. A gamble, as now the track is starting to get damp here. That water is starting to lay on the circuit surface, and as they make their way around right now, you can see Tan having to wrestle the car through Brazil Corner at turn number 10. And as he goes down into X right now, we're going to ride on board with Oleg Zabolov here to give you an idea of those conditions and what they're having to do in terms of fighting the car. As you can see, Zabolov is inching closer, corner after corner right now. He feels more comfortable in these changing conditions. So we see Tango deep, and as they make their way through turn number 12 through Boom Corner, it is the case that right now Tan very vulnerable, but Zabolov not pushing too hard. He knows it's only got to be one little twinge, and if he gets it wrong, it could be all over as they come through. Campers right now, as they make their way through, you can see Tan really struggling to get that Ferrari to turn through the corners. He's got no traction. The car just does not want to go, and as they make their way out of turn number 14, Zabolov all over the back of him, but he goes deep in return as he locks up on the front end. And as they make the way right now, I think both drivers have surely got to be coming into the pit come the end of this lap, because to go on any further, it's tantamount to putting the whole race at risk as they make the way out of 16 and head up towards the bus stop chicane. And surely they both now be worrying about the strategy as they make the way in towards Blanchimont Corner here. They come through the left hand. You can see Tan really struggling to get the car through. Zabolov makes the corner. Tan runs wide, and it's the case that right now Zabolov closed up a little bit more as they make the way through. Will we see them deviate into the pits as we look to the helicam? Tan stays out, Zabolov comes in. I think Tan's made a mistake here, surely, because to pit with the car in such a tricky situation. But then again, in half an hour's time, we're hearing the rain is now going to stop. It's only a brief deluge. It's going to intensify in the next 10 minutes, and then it's going to calm down. I mean, if the Singaporean here manages to stay out and make this work, it will be a masterclass drive. If it doesn't work, however, of course, we'll be looking to Zabolov, who will pulled off a masterclass strategy call, or will somebody else capitalise from all of this, as meanwhile Tinker van der Velde is into the pits, and as he comes in, it is the case that Crouch right now making his way on through, and Crouch, of course, one of our drivers who did switch to the wet compound. He's our lead driver in the wet. We're waiting to see what lap times come on in from the Aston Martin driver as he makes his way down through Bustle Corner here. He's looking a bit more composed already. Those wet tyres seem to be getting there in terms of coming up to the ideal temperatures and giving him the grip he needs as he makes his way through Ix and heads down towards Pullman Corner. But more pit stops still to come, of course. A number of drives still to make pit stops, as we're hearing that Kevin Gellan has made his second stop. Of course, he had that opening stop to repair damage to the car, and he's made that second stop to go onto the wet tyres. So for him, at least, he's now cleared his mandatory stops. He only needs to pit it when he actually needs to, if he needs to anymore. And as Crouch comes on through, it is the case that Dylan Tan, our race leader, well, how far can he go? I think he's struggling right now. I do not think Tan has got enough there in those dry tyres. And as they make their way down towards Boone Corner, you can see behind him there, he's got one of the drivers who's a lap down. That's one of the Cosmos Racing Team machines, who's right over the back of him here. And this is a very tricky situation. I believe that may be a Selly behind him as they come down into the braking zone for what is turn number 13. And you can see Tan literally having to force the car. Of course, he drifts wide there, and I think for him that'll give him some reassurance. That's the number 488 car coming on through, and as they make their way through the left-hander, it's the case that Tan just not in a comfortable spot right now, and he doesn't want to switch tyre. It's understandable as we clear the halfway point of the race. If he can see on the radar, we have got the clouds coming back in terms of just clouds, not rain coming down in half an hour's time. He doesn't want to risk making the tyre change, but right now I think the risk he's putting himself at is he could lose that car at any moment, despite his control of the car. He's putting in fantastic control. Now, where is Crouch in all this in terms of lap times? Well, Crouch crossed the timing line on a 2:32.4, his first lap on the wet tyres. We see Tan run incredibly wide there. Surely he's got to be bringing that car in, because if he keeps running wide like that, he could be even seeing a drive-through for track limit violations as he makes his way into the braking zone here for the bus stop chicane. This has got to be him coming in. He is coming in the end. He's gone too far, and he has lost out massively from all of this as he now makes his way into the pits. And now it is the case. Can the Russian of Oleg Zabolov take the lead of this race, having made the pit call one lap earlier? Nobody was able to make those dry tyres, those slick compounds work through to the end of this rain phase. And as we see Zabolov heading down towards Pullman Corner right now, Tan in the pits and just gradually, very gradually making his way towards the pit box. He's just got no grip of the car as I look out my commentary box window. Meanwhile, other drivers who are gaining from all of this. We are hearing that right now. One of our fastest drivers out on circuit is Luke Whitehead, who's on the wet compound. Of course, he is still the best part of what is a lap down and trying to press on all the same as he makes his way on around. And I'm hearing a bit further down the order indeed further down the order, Marcus Fox has also made this switch and is trying to gain as a result of it. He's only recently made the switch, however, and trying to get those tyres up to temperature, but this is opening the race up massively as meanwhile we look from Marcus Fox to Andreas Sorensen here, the Dane for the Nordic Racing Team, who's chasing after Andrew Jacklin. These drivers, of course, having made that switch onto the wet compound, and as they make their way through the bus stop chicane right now, it is the case Sorensen really enjoying these conditions and trying to strip time out of Jacklin. And did he strip 3 seconds out of him on that last lap? Can he do it again this lap? Well, as they come across that timing line, he strips out 2 seconds as they make their way down towards turn 1. And Sorensen really coming alive in the wet as they make their way into this braking zone here. And we check in with you guys and girls in the chat, and we can see their Ultra Gaming saying one brave strategy from Dylan Tan, but it's not worked out. But we will wait and see how they change places as we are hearing that Tan right now still in the pit lane as Andreas Sorensen looks at the potential move here coming onto the Kimmel Straight versus Andrew Jacklin. But where is Zabolov in all this? Well, Zabolov is making his way right now up towards turn number 3, and where's Tan in comparison? Well, Tan I think is still in the pits. Indeed he is. He's just making his way out of the pits right now, so that's how much time it has cost him by running one more lap. And Oleg Zabolov is now your leader of this race with 57 minutes to go, and Zabolov called it right on the strategy, deciding to pit on the right lap when the tyres were just about to fall away in terms of the slick tyre versus the wet compound. He's made this work, and now Tan, well, he's here in P2. Where is Tingo van der Velde in all of this? Well, Tingo van der Velde, of course, with that 10-second time penalty, he's currently in P3 and just making his way onto the Kimmel Straight here, so he's not been able to capitalise as much as he would have loved to, but van der Velde all the same making the strategy work like Zabolov here, and now chasing after Tan as Tan's got to get those wets up to temperature, and that does mean effectively that right now Dylan Tanner will be looking vulnerable going on to this lap, because he's got to get some temperature in those wet tyres, he's got to get them up to speed, and meanwhile Tinko van der Velde will have one lap to have already done so he can push a little bit harder, but we'll wait and see how that plays out, as meanwhile Andreas Sorensen here continues to chase after his fellow Aston Martin racing driver of Andre Jacklin as they make their way through the left-hander of turn number 14 and head up towards Stavlo 1. As they make the way through the right-hander here, you can see it's the situation where I think Sorensen, whilst he was gaining initially, I think now Jacklin's got himself up to speed to an extent with regards to that wet compound. Of course, the rain intensifying at this point in time, but we are expecting within the next half an hour the rain to subside and the circuit to start drying up once again. And then when we get to that point, we will most likely have a circuit that is drying in the remaining 20 minutes of this race, and it's all about who makes the switch to the slick compound at the end of the race. And you can imagine now, for the majority of our drivers who still have one mandatory pit stop to go, they will not want to make that pit stop until we enter the drying phase, because they make it whilst we've got the wet phase ongoing. It means they are likely to have to make a third stop, and that could be a race defeating pit stop, as we see Sorensen cannot gain in one. In fact, Jacklin now going a bit faster, 3/10 faster that lap. He's got himself up to speed in these conditions, as meanwhile we look a little bit further up the order and we can see that Dylan Tan really now trying to get himself back up to momentum here as he goes on to another lap, but Zabolov is the best part of around the circuit already. 6.4 seconds is the gap between the two of them, and Zabolov really making that strategy call count, as we can see Tan going deep into turn 1, and I think he is having difficulty in getting these tyres to switch on at this point in the race, as he makes his way charging up towards turns 3 through to 5 here, and as he comes rip-roaring on up at this point, here's the case that Tanner right now trying to do everything he can to get back into this race. Meanwhile, one driver who in all of this chaos and confusion with when to go onto the wet compound has gained massively. It is Kevin Gelling. He has gone from what was P18 to P15, and he is continuing to fly right now in these conditions. He's one of our fastest drivers. To be fair, Zavolov and Tinko van der Velde are the fastest here, but Kevin Gelling on 2:33s right now and chasing down the drivers ahead of him. His next target is Rena Efferstay, and we do believe that Gelling will have one more pit stop to do, much like the drivers ahead of him, given the fact we have got that transition back to the dry conditions at the end. But it is the case for Gelling right now. If he can carry on this momentum, there is no reason why he cannot finish inside the top 10 when it's all said and done. He's got 54 minutes to go, and with the pace he's lapping at right now, he is lapping faster than all of the drivers running from P14 up to what is P9. He could potentially be within a chance there of getting back all the way up into the top 10 when it's all over, but we'll have to wait and see, as the ITR driver is pushing hard in the Ferrari 488 here and looking to end his season on a high as he makes his way down through Pullen Corner. But we look from him to further up the road once again. I can tell you that the fastest man on the circuit right now in these conditions is Tinko van der Velde. Now his gap to the leader is 21 seconds. Now van der Velde has got a long way to go here in this race. He's got a lot of time to work on bringing that gap down here. Now van der Velde of course will know that right now all he's got to do is finish P3 and he will take the championship, with Cherepenin retiring and Whitehead down in P21. But right now, I think for van der Velde, he will want this win just as much as that championship win. He will see in his mind that he lost out of Bathurst in rainy conditions. He wants to prove himself that he can take the win when the conditions are tough. And as he makes his way out of 16 and heads on towards Blanchimont right now, he is pushing on like an absolute bullet. He is flying compared to Tan and closing Tan down at a very rapid rate of knots as he makes his way through Blanchimont Corner once again. And in that McLaren, he's making it dance, but he's got to be careful about dancing too far wide of the dance floor there, or the track limits as we like to call them, because if he goes too wide too repetitively, it will be the case that our judges, or indeed our stewards in this instance, will be giving him a drive-through penalty, an automated drive-through penalty, as he makes his way now onto another lap. But that last lap for Tinko van der Velde, a 2:29.1 compared to Dylan Tan on a 2:31.5 and Zabolov on a 2:30.2. Tinko van der Velde is taking a second out of our leader. He is taking 2.5 seconds out of P2. This man is on a mission to win. Will he be able to do it though? That's the big question. As meanwhile, speaking of another driver who's putting in a good performance in these changing conditions, it's the Bullis Esports driver of Mattia Vaca, as he makes his way right now out of turn at number 10 and down towards X corner at turn at number 11, chasing after Haratojo right now, and in a similar situation, albeit Vaca on that last lap of 2:43.0. I think he may have got it a bit wrong on the previous lap. Something has gone wrong, but I think this time around he is bringing that gap back down to Haratojo as he makes his way through Pullen Corner, but drifts a little little bit wide there of the initial apex, and as a result I think Vacker just pushing a bit too hard in these conditions in the Bentley, and perhaps needing to get the car back under the centre as he makes his way down towards turn number 13 into campus he goes here. Now in terms of the radar, I can tell you that within the next 10 minutes the rain is expected to start reducing. We are going to have some rain, but the intensity is not going to be as high as it is now. And the track is now fully wet in terms of we have got some standing water starting to form on the circuit. So this will start to get into the minds of our drivers. And you can see that, in fact, there on the inside of where Stavlo 1, you can see the puddle forming there as our drivers make the way on through. And this will make it only more difficult. You see Marcus Fox in the rear of the picture there trying to unlap himself even further as Konstantin Soldatov into the pit. And Soldatov, who was at the time, in fact, what has happened to Soldatov is the big question. He's in the pits right now and he was running right up the order. I think they might have an issue with the car here because he's been in the pits for over what is now 4 minutes. I think Soldatov's race at an end. Well, this is going to see a number of drivers move up the order, and right now that is a disaster for the M2 competition team. But going from one Russian to another, it's not a disaster for our race leader as Oleg Zabolov is continuing to extend that lead over Dylan Tan, and as he makes his way right now down in towards where's the bus stop chicane, that lead is now up to 8 seconds. Tan is really not comfortable in these conditions compared to Zabolov, who I think has really prepared himself for anything to happen at Spa as he makes his way out to turn 20 and onto what for him is now lap number 30 as he comes charging across that line. Meanwhile, further back in your picture there, you can see Sorensen continue to chase after Jacqueline. These two inseparable in terms of lap time right now. That last lap, Jacqueline at 2:35.6, Sorensen at 2:35.6. Albeit Sorensen started by 8 thousandths of a second, and Andreas right now really trying to find a way to get past Jacqueline and then go on to hunt down Vacker, because right now this could be an outside chance for a top 10 for both of them as they make their way up towards Origin Radion once again. As he pushes on, we are hearing there in the YouTube chat from Stunt77P0 to say that from Soldatov he's got issues with his pedals, his accelerator has died, that car has retired, and that is so unfortunate for Soldatov, who was putting in a very solid race and was looking at a potential top 5, but the Spa circuit has claimed another victim, and Soldatov with technical issues is now out of this race. That will promote a number of drivers as we've already seen, and with 49 minutes to go by the time Sorensen and Jacqueline make their way down towards Brussels corner at this point, it is one of those situations where anybody could finish inside the top 10 as things currently stand. Indeed, with the change of conditions that is coming later on, we reckon we could see another change in the order. It could all come together at the end. And speaking of coming together, we can see that Vesfield, who was chasing after Courage earlier on in the race when it was in the dry, it was the case that these two were separated only by 7/10 of a second. Now they're in the wet, they're separated by 7/10 of a second once again as they make their way down towards what is Lake Com. But this time you can see that Field really pushing on in terms of lap time. Field on that last lap 2 seconds faster than Courage. I think Field is feeling more comfortable in the wet. We'll have to wait and see if he can get the move done as we ride on board here with the Swiss driver. Now as he makes his way down towards turn number 10 at this point, of course dealing with the spray of the Aston Martin in front of him. You can see Courage going very deep there. I think Courage really struggling with tyre temp as they make their way through 10 and up towards 11, just not able to get those wet to give him the grip he wants here. And as they make their way out of X corner, you can see Field, to be fair, battling with the car as well. It's not as though it's all clean sailing for the Swiss driver as he makes his way into turn number 12, but both drivers really having to wrestle with the car to get it to do what they want, and Field having the easier time of the rest of the match compared to Courage ahead as they make their way down towards the campus chicane. Now ahead of them they do have, of course, one of the back markers, I believe one of the drivers who is a lap down. That's not Tinko van der Velde ahead of them as far as well. I think that's Mattia Vacker, in fact, or alternatively that is Harry Phillips. It's one of the Bentleys from this distance, I can definitely tell you that, and I think it is Vacker as they make their way through, and Vacker in P10, and that shows you the gulf between our leaders and then the drivers just at the end of the top 10. As we see Field trying to hold on, but as they make the way on through, he just cannot seem to get the exit he wants out of the corners here. And in fact now it does seem as though Courage starting to settle back down, but again it could just be a one lap issue. We never know from Field as he makes his way from what was Stavlo up into Blanchimont corner right now, and more settled this time through Blanchimont compared to some of the previous corners, and closing once again here as he makes his way down into the braking zone for what is the bus stop chicane and getting much closer. As you can see, Courage then nailing his braking point as well. These two really pushing it to the limit right now, both knowing there's an opportunity for P4 as it currently stands, and neither one of them wanting to give up that opportunity as Field now 4 tenths back. He gained on that last lap, in fact he gained quite considerably, gained by 7 tenths of a second on the whole. And as they make their way through turn 1 and up towards turns 2 through to 5, he is inching ever closer as they now go roaring down the straight once again. And you can see here Field now moving out of the slipstream. He wants to give himself a little bit of visibility of turn 3. And as they make their way out the hill right now, can Field nail this and get as close as possible in the run down towards Lake Om? Well, he's had the perfect run there, and you can see that he's all the way tucked in behind in the slipstream of that Aston Martin. But now it's on the straight, and this is where the Aston Martin comes on strong. But Field has got a lot of momentum here. Could he be looking for the move? He's going to go for it. It's going to be very late on the brakes. He's not quite there yet, but you could see the ITR driver, the Intruder Racing Team driver, looking for that opportunity. He was within 3 tenths, if not closer, that time around, and continues to push through the corners right now as he makes his way down towards what is turn number 10. But we look from him to a little bit further up the field, and it is the case that right now we look at Tinko van der Velde, who is continuing to close down at Dylan Tam. But on that last lap, Tinko van der Velde only taking 1.7 seconds off of our P2 driver, and indeed it would seem to be the case that Oleg Sobolov continuing to lap a second a lap slower than Van der Velde. So Van der Velde really is coming on strong here, and I think later on this race we could see him right up there with the top 2, assuming there's no more penalties or any mishaps for anyone. Right now our top 3 are all going to come together, I would say, come the end of this race, but we'll wait and see as we look from our man in P3 to back down to our battle for P4, and we can see Vesfield trying to continue that chase after Critch as they make their way through campus. With 45 minutes to go, there is still plenty of racing to be seen. The track temperature now down to 16 degrees centigrade, 13 degrees centigrade ambient temperature here. It is 24 past 5 in the evening as simulated in Belgium, although I can tell you that right now that's not the actual time given our time zones at which we're doing at this race, but it is the case that right now in the evening in Belgium as simulated, it is getting colder. The rain is falling, but the rain is due to go soon. And when it does, then there will be the all-important switch back to the dry compound tyre, to the slick tyre, and who will be the first one to brave it. Meanwhile, looking from them back to our P10 battle here, and it looks like, in fact, hold up a second, it's Andre Jacqueline coming on through, and Jacqueline's going to position as we see Tinko van der Velde is caught in behind these drivers. In fact, he's right in the middle of it as he has to take her up, and Vacker there has got it very wrong and into the wall. And what about Tinko van der Velde? Well, he safely made it on through. Now, was there contact? It didn't look as though there was contact. I think Vacker's got it wrong under his own steam based on what we could see, but one thing you can definitely see is how Andreas Sorensen has fallen back from this. He's up into P11 and Vacker into the wall. That is a disaster as he now returns here. But you can see further back there you've got Rainer Effenstedt, who is essentially running into a drag race with what is alongside him. That is Mooney beside him, and as they make the way down into the braking zone here for turn number 7, Mooney unlapping himself versus Rainer Effenstedt, who is running in P14. Mooney running down in P21, as behind Effenstedt he has got the Tecmo Rasket Racing driver Ernesto Magia, who will be battling him for position as they make the way down towards turn number 10. But indeed, with that unfortunate moment for Vacker right now, that is going to see him drop down the order over the course of this lap. Indeed, if he comes into the pits to repair the car, that will be one pit stop he did not want to have to do, as we can see here Effenstedt continuing around in P14 through X corner. As he makes his way down towards Pillon corner, we look a bit further up the field once again, and I can tell you that in that battle for P4, now Field much closer to the back of Krivic as they make the way up through X, and as they come through the left-hander, we ride on board here with the Aston Martin drivers. They make the way through. You can see the small twitch there of the rear end of Field's Porsche as they made the way out of the corner, and that's how much now Field still seems to feel as though he's alive in the car in terms of he can push it to that limit. And look at how close he is running to Krivic out Pillon corner now as they make the way down the hill here. Will we see Phil go for the move on the inside? He's going to do it. He's going to do it quite late in the day. He decides not to here, but Phil putting that pressure on, and this is not a comfortable place for the lead driver in this situation. I can tell you that, because put yourself in Critch's shoes right now. He right now is trying to navigate this circuit where it is a case that this circuit is wet, but it's not increasing in rain intensity, but he's navigating those wet conditions on a car that wants to try and find grip where it can, but also trying to avoid the puddles, and at the same time he's got to try and deal with a fast charging Porsche behind him that wants nothing other than to get ahead of him. Put all three of those items into the mix, and I can assure you that Krivic right now is multitasking like a madman. He's doing it very well as they make the way way in towards Blanchimont corner once again here, and as they come through left-hander for them, which is the 32nd time of asking, and coming in towards the braking zone for bus stop, you can see how Field getting much closer each and every lap. He's not able to find that one opportunity to get on through. As we can see the track conditions right now with the rain dropping, it's a damp track, but it's not as wet as it previously was, as it is the case while drivers going around, they're drying up the track faster than the rain can go down. So as a result, will we see some drivers' pace change now? What we can see for the time being, that Courage holding on, but as we look to the exterior cameras from a wide angle, we can see it's the case that Courage holding on right now, but Field finding every which way to position that Porsche on the back of that Aston Martin as they now make the way through onto Uruge and Radion, and as they make the way up the hill here through turns 3 through to 5, will we see Field get even closer this time? He knows how to stay close, he knows how to tuck it in tight behind Aston Martin. He's got the run, but he's got it early. Now, is this too early? That's the question, because that Aston Martin will come back alive in the drag race. They make the way down towards the braking zone here for turn number 7 as they come in towards Lake On. We look to the helicam and you can see that once again, whilst Field had the overspeed, this time he had it too soon, and as a result, Courage could just simply out-drag him to the braking zone. And whilst Field can brake late in the Porsche, he can't brake that late in order to put the car on the inside, and that is the trouble he's having. He's caught behind a car which is faster on the straight, and it's where they need to back, it's where he needs to make the passes on the straight, unless Courage makes a mistake here, because right now there's no other way through as they make the way through X corner once again. Now looking from them to a little bit further down the order, I can tell you that whilst all this is going on, Chris Zoiger meanwhile is catching up to the back of Nestor Maggio as he drifts his way through Pullen corner there, and as they make the way down towards what's the campus chicane, it's the case that effort state has been released here. As you see Magia going a bit deeper, Zoiger comes on through there into P14, making it look quite straightforward there, but I can assure you both drivers driving on the limit. I think Zoiger just more comfortable in these conditions as they come in towards what is turn number 16, as they make their way through Stavlo 1, 15 and into Stavlo 2, and a little bit further back we do now have Harry Phillips inching ever closer here, and Phillips seeing the opportunity to go hunting down a top 15 finish here with 40 minutes of this race to go, and continue to push on is Harry Phillips as he makes his way through the corners now as he comes charging down towards what is Blanchimont here. It is the case that for Phillips he's got a long way to go in this race to get into the top 50 as we see Chris Zoiger making the breakaway from Magia here as they come down into the bus stop chicane. Meanwhile, further up the road, I can tell you that with regards to what is the battle for P10, Kevin Gelling is closing up on the back of Jacklin. He's very close already, in fact, as they make the way out of the source. They come through too, and it's going to be side by side here into Rouge. Gelling will have the outside to inside run into Radion, and as they make the way up the hill, both drivers there, you can see Gelling took the advantage. Jacklin tried to go for the cutback there through 3, and he's almost got it in terms of the speed he needed, but I think Gelling's already very wise to it. He's positioned the car well, and he's given himself the inside defensive line, but now it's the drag race down towards Lake On, and as they come to the end of the Kimmel Straight here, Gelling on the inside, it's going to be Jacklin on the outside. If Gelling gets this done, it's been a brave move and a smartly timed move, and he's got it done here. It is the case that Kevin Gelling is now up into top 10 position. He's in P10, and as he makes his way on through, the number 710 driver will continue to push on. Haratojo is now the next driver for him to hunt down, but the problem is, of course, Haratojo is 36 seconds up the road, but will we see perhaps a gamble from Gelling? Will he decide if the track's not drying at the rate that perhaps we would expect it to, he'll stay out on the wet for longer than everybody else when he tried to go to the end? Well, anything's a gamble right now. Throw the kitchen sink at it if you have to. It's the final race of the season. He'll want to end on a high as Jacklin loses out. They're getting a little bit wrong through X corner. They're trying to stay so close, but meanwhile, looking from one ITR driver to another, it is the case that the Intruder Racing Team driver of Vesfield trying to keep that pressure on Courage as they come on through. The rain is still falling, but we are expecting this to be a drying up race come the final half an hour, and if that is going to be the case, that transition to the slick compound is going to be perhaps the biggest challenge of this one, because nobody will want to make that change at the wrong time. It could destroy a race for a driver as they make their way around the circuit here at Spa-Francorchamps, but you can see Vesfield continuing to mount that pressure on Courage as they come on through, but he just cannot find a way to get in there as they make their way around, and we can see that in the YouTube chat there. One username I can't repeat on the broadcast because unfortunately we'd have to censor it, but it is the case. A lot of drivers, well, a lot of spectators cheering on Courage in particular, and indeed very great to see so many of you getting involved in the chat, and feel free to give me your predictions. Who's going to win? Who's going to finish in the top 5? How's Field versus Courage going to turn out in the end? And let me know who else you're rooting for. With 37 minutes to go right now, it may have not been the start to the race that we all wanted, with a major incident going out of Radion and onto the Kemmel Straight, but this race right now is proving to throw a number of shockers, a number of surprises, and there's still plenty more. And right now, will Field look for the move this time on the inside into the bus stop chicane? No, he's too far back once again. He doesn't go for it. Instead, he waits that opportunity. Meanwhile, further, well, in fact, we were going to look away, but you can see there Courage getting a little bit wrong on the exit, and this is Field's opportunity now to set himself up very nicely for the run on towards Uruja Radial. Now, will Courage give the position up here, knowing he can come back on the Kemmel Straight? You can see he's defending it here into turn 1, so I don't think he's going to give this one up. But Field can stay very close on exit. In fact, he's going to get ahead here now, Field. Now, is this a way that Courage is trying to manipulate the situation to come back ahead on the Kemmel Straight? Well, Field is going to be the leader of the two of them as they make the way up the hill. We ride on board with Courage here as he makes his way all the way through Radion and now onto the Kemmel Straight. And as they come through, you can see Field getting the better run here. And with Courage, he's going to try and come back. He's left it from quite a distance away as they make their way down towards the braking zone here. And I don't think Courage is anywhere near close enough. I think Vesfield has got it done and nailed it through Rouge and Radion. He's just had the pace, and Courage in the end has lost out on the position. But to be fair, to hold Vesfield back for as long as he could, I think it's testament to how hard he's been pushing. But in the end, Vesfield has found a way through by simply having that greater confidence in these conditions. But remember, the rain is stopping soon, and when it does, we could see this reverse once again, because we saw how Courage was very, very comfortable in the dry conditions. He was able to keep Vesfield at bay as they're now coming up behind some of the lapped cars, and we can see there Nesta Maggio, I believe, that is moving out of the way immediately of both drivers as they now come charging down towards Bourne Corner here. It could all change once again. It's not over yet as they make the way on through, but what I can tell you with all this happening right now is the situation with Chris Zoiger, who's just up the road to him. He's trying to look for the move on what is Rainer Effenstedt here. Is the CHF Motorsport driver. He's trying to take a place of the TUG Racing Esports team, and as they make their way through Campus Chicane here, they have got the battle for what is P4 behind them, and you can see that in the rear of your picture. We can also see Harry Phillips, who's in P15 and trying to close up to this battle for P13. He wants to get in on the mix here, but will he be able to do so? That's the question as all our drivers make the way on through once again. 35 minutes still to go in this race, and as our drivers make the way around right now, it could all change once again as we do see Zoiger here staying very close to the back of what is Rainer Effenstedt as they make the way through Blanchimont. And as they come through the left-hander and into that braking zone at bus stop very shortly, no change at this time. In fact, it is as it was as they make the way through the corner here. But Harry Phillips is definitely getting a move on. He's lapping a second a lap faster than the two in front of him. But of course, once he's caught up to them, will he still be able to deploy that pace to get past them quickly, or will it start to compromise his race? As we go a bit further up the road, we can tell you that Andreas Sorensen, the Dane here from the NRT Racing team, of course, Emil Blaine will be screaming on from the sidelines here for his teammate. Sorensen cannot find a way past Jacklin for the time being. These two equal on pace lap after lap right now. I think Sorensen may be waiting for the transition to the dry conditions to get this move done for P11 as they make their way down the straight here, down towards what is Lacon once again. They've got Ray Mooney behind them, and as Mooney looks to try and unlap himself and these guys in P20, it is the case. I can give you an update on our championship leader of Luke Whitehead. He's in P19 as it currently stands, and chasing down at Benjamin Asali in P18. The gap between the two of them 5.5 seconds. But right now, if it was to end as it currently stands, it would be this man who would take the championship crown. Tinker van der Velde here, the Team Tonki driver, who has hunted down Dylan Tan. He's now within a second of our second place man, who the Legion of Racers driver, who led this race superbly at the start before the rain arrived, and it all went wrong in the rain transition as he went too long on the slick compound. Now as they make the way in towards what is Stavlo 1 here with 33 minutes to go, it's now the case that the battle for P2 is going to open up, and Van der Velde will then, if he's able to get this done quickly, he will then have to close down what we suspect is about 15 seconds to the leader. But you could see there Tan just pushing, oh sorry, not Tan, Van der Velde pushing it a bit too much there on the exit of Stavlo 2, almost losing the car. And I can tell that Oleg Zabolov right now, with Tinko van der Velde lapping his last lap at 2:27.9, Oleg Zabolov is now lapping in the mid-28. Zabolov is pushing in response to van der Velde. He knows that the Dutchman is trying to gain that lead. But you can see as they've now come together through the bus stop chicane here in the battle for P2. We ride on board here with the McLaren driver as he goes on to another lap. They go on to lap number 37 as they cross the timeline here. And van der Velde, well, he's not close enough to go for a move here into turn 1. But you can just see how much momentum he is carrying compared to Tan, and Tan really struggling here to get the power down and carry the speed as the rain has now subsided. So now the circuit is drying up once again. We have got just over half an hour to go. We're expecting this to be a non-rain race for the rest of it. No more rain to fall. It's all about now the track drying up with the clouds, albeit it is quite low temperature, and who can master that transition onto the slicks. But before that happens, can Tinko van der Velde find a way past Dylan Tan as they make their way down into Lake Com? He's going to look round the outside here and into the braking zone they go. And as the camera switches over, you can see van der Velde tries to hold it, and there's contact between the two of them there as there's a small tap from the rear of Tan's car, and Tan sliding around there, and you can see van der Velde not happy with that and flashing his lights there. But as they make their way down towards turn number 10, you can see Marcus Fox immediately pulling out the way. He knows he's not going to want to be involved in all of this. Van der Velde trying to move. It didn't quite work. It was a brave move to try the outside to inside through Lake On, but now he's got to find somewhere a bit more conventional and I think a bit safer to try and go for it as he makes his way down towards Pullen Corner. Remember, van der Velde right now has got the championship on the line. He wants to gain every place he can, but as well as that, he has got a championship which it will go his way if it all finishes as is, as they make their way down towards Pullen Corner and in towards campus. And as they come down towards the braking zone right now, you can see there Tan just trying to run onto some of the damper part of the circuit in order to get some water onto those wet tyres. These tyres will now start to heat up rather rapidly, and that is something which will be a concern to our drivers, because as those tyre temperatures come up, they will go to a much higher point than they will be used to be operating in, and when that happens, the grip will start to fade and the tyre will start to wear very rapidly. And you can see van der Velde here all over the back of Tan. He's now going to look for it into Blanchimont, or will it be into the bus stop? Well, either way, he is very close as they make the way out of turn number 16 through 17 and now up into Blanchimont corner of turn number 18. He's all over the back of the Ferrari in front of him. He's as close as he ever wants to be, and as they make the way now down towards the bus stop chicane, will he look for the move around the outside? He's going to go for it under braking, but you can see Tan going as late as he dare on the brakes. He literally gives van der Velde the tiniest bit of room, and to be fair, with van der Velde wanting to make a claim for P2, he made it, and he made it stick there, and Tan did everything he can to squeeze him, but he gave him the space there, and in the end Tan had to open the steering to the inside. But as you can see, as they make their way into turn 1, Tan's gone very deep on the brakes, but van der Velde saw that coming, and Tan's lost the rear of the car, and Tan with a spin now I think has now lost out on that opportunity to come back in the battle for P2. You could see the Singaporean really wanted that second place, but in the end I think he's pushed it a little bit too far, and now he's going to be looking at P3 at best as van der Velde goes charging after Zabolov. But to be fair, that battling between the two of them has cost van der Velde massively in the hunt after Zabolov. That last lap, to give you an idea, Zabolov was on a 2:27.0, van der Velde a 2:29.1, and that gap has opened up to 18 seconds. It was 14 when van der Velde started battling with Tan. It's opened up by 4 seconds, and now van der Velde has got it all to do in 29 minutes. Can he hunt down Zabolov, or will it be the case that over the course of the remaining distance that Zabolov can cruise this one to the finish lines? We look at our race leader right now, who, to be fair to him, has been flawless since the start of this race. He played the strategy call perfectly, but he's got a long way to go still. It's not over yet, and as we can see on the forecast, in the remaining 30 minutes, based on the current trajectory of the weather, we are looking at no more rain. We are just looking at the clouds and a circuit that is going to drive, as we are seeing drivers already into the pits to make the switch to the slicks. It's Chris Soiger and Rainer Effenstedt who have come in particular, and Chris Soiger right now, well, I think he's got it all to play for, with Rainer Effenstedt just behind him, and as they make the way, and these are the first two to come in, as we see, it's the case that also Luke Whitehead into the pits, and behind him, that's Giovanni Izzo in from P8. So one of our drivers effectively on the lead lap right now, deciding to come in early. Now, will we see even more pit stops here? Will we see a reaction? Or will we see our teams decide, you know what, we're going to wait and see how the drivers who decided to go onto the slick early, how that plays out? Well, they're all coming in right now, and I can tell you that this is going to be a huge gamble. So they've come in too early, and they find a damp patch on circuit or a wet patch on circuit. That could be absolutely disastrous. As you can see that dry line forming very rapidly around here right now. It is the case that this circuit is not going to stay wet for long. It's damp right now, as it says in the top right corner of your screen, but I can assure you it will soon become greasy, and then it will become a green circuit once again, where it will be all about laying that rubber down. As we see Sorensen there making his way through Stavlo 1, and that puddle at Stavlo 1 on the inside continuing to stay there, and it's catching drivers by surprise. We saw Sorensen there just with a little flick of water coming up on the rear right tyre in particular, just losing grip for a brief moment, but Sorensen combating it very well, as we have still got time to go. And as our drivers make their way on through right now, 27 minutes, and as they make their way around, I can tell you that with Giovanni Izzo into the pits, and really he's our highest placed driver to come in and go onto the slick so early. Will we see even more pit stops here? We see Sorensen making his way through. He decides not to pit, so a lot of drivers are not making the gamble, as he has Izzo still there in the pit lane here. Now we are seeing that Haratojo has come through. Haratojo, of course, has got to make a pit stop as of the rest of this race. At some point, he has to make one more mandatory stop. But the Cosmos Racing Team driver right now putting in a solid drive here as he makes his way down towards turn number 10. And as he comes on through, he is the highest placed KRT driver in this race. Indeed, flying the banner for Team KRT as he makes his way on through. And one driver who we have rarely talked about, to be fair, but enjoying one of his season best drives, and that is Cormac Ryan Meenan right now, who in P6 has really not put a foot wrong all this race. And the FS Racing driver from Ireland here, well, he's been a bit of a silent one in this race, but I can tell you that we've been watching from the sidelines, albeit he hasn't been on camera, and he is pressing on. He's up into P5 right now with Vesfield into the pits, and now this is a big pit stop for Vesfield, because he was battling with Critch. He got ahead, but now it's the case. Will this put him out back behind Critch when the pit window completes, in terms of when Critch also comes into the pit? Was this the right cause? We're also hearing Benjamin Asili is into the pits to take that switch to the slicks. Not too many others, however, making that reactionary stop right now. And in terms of the lap times, our race leader, Oleg Sobolov, now lapping into the 26s on a 26.2 on that last lap. Of course, it's not the best lap of the race. Our fastest laps have been in the 2.18s, and Sobolov holds the fastest lap of this race at 2.18.3. Tinker van der Velde, meanwhile, at 26.7. So Sobolov is lapping half a second faster, and he carries on around there. He feels comfortable on this wet compound for the time being. He's going to go all the way. I think he's going to try and take this wet compound as far as he can, and he will react to Tinker van der Velde. I think he's waiting for van der Velde to pit, and then he will do it on the next lap in order to cover him off. I think that's the way the Russian wants to play this. He has a lot of time to play with. He's got 18 seconds advantage to use, and that 18 seconds is huge. That is a lifetime in motorsport. In fact, it's almost 19 seconds right now. And where's van der Velde, I hear you ask? Well, he's making his way down into La Source right now, and the number 66 driver here is pushing on as much as he possibly can, but will he be able to close it down? That's the question that we're all waiting to see what the answer is. But meanwhile, the driver who we've got our eyes on, Giovanni Izzo, he has recently come out of the pits on a set of slicks. The Cortec Racing 1 driver here, the Italian, in the what is P13 right now, in the number 88 car. And as he makes his way through turn number 18 and heads up towards the bus stop chicane, for Izzo, the big question is the switch too soon? Has he made the switch too early? And of course, that'll be something that a lot of the teams will be looking at. The drivers who've yet to make their second stop will all be looking at this. The drivers who've yet to switch from the wet back to the slick, they will be looking at this to see what his lap time is. And as he comes across the timeline this time around, of course, it's a 4-minute lap, because that accounts for the pit stop as well. But it's this next lap that is the critical one, because if his lap time is better than a 2:26 or in the region of a 2:26 alongside Oleg Zavolov, then that will be information to everyone that the slick compound is the compound to switch to. It is now the prime compound, as we will wait and see how that plays out. But meanwhile, looking at a battle on circuit, we can see that the battle for what is P10, we believe it is P11 when all the pit stops play out. It's Sorensen in the middle of this, in the foreground. It was Andrew Jacklin for a brief while. And this is the battle between the two drivers here, the Dane versus the Slovenian. No change between the two of them as they make way around right now, and they've pretty much been like this for the majority of the race since the conclusion of the opening 30 minutes, and both lapping at similar pace. As we see Sorensen making his way through, Harry Phillips, of course, chasing these two down and lapping slightly faster once again. In fact, taking a second out of the pair of them each and every lap and continuing to push as hard as he possibly can as they make their way down the hill and in towards X corner. And as they come on through for now, as we see Phillips here making his way through the corner and down towards where he's put on, it is the case that he will be trying to get himself into the top 10 when this is all over. But will he be able to? That's the question with 23 minutes to go. And as he makes his way on down, right now we will wait and see. But in terms of those lap times coming in from our drivers, we are still waiting for that confirmation of in terms of was it right to switch to the slick. And again, the big name that we're all keeping our eyes on right now is Giovanni Izzo, who's just behind Harry Phillips here, making his way through what is the right-hander of Campus. And as he comes on through the right into left sequence of the chicane here, and exits and heads up towards Stablo. He gets it almost wrong there, running wide. Now, this will be a compromised lap as a result, but still, it will be a good indicator. I think Izzo pushing, but losing the rear end a little bit there, coming through Stablo 1. I think it's the wrong time to make the switch to the slick right now because he's seemingly not getting the grip he desires. A lot of drivers have made the switch, of course. They've gone for the gamble, knowing there's nothing to lose, as we're hearing that Cyril Pantera is into the pits on P21, so he's had enough of the wet compound as well, as we see Izzo here making his way through Blanchimont and now down towards bus stop. Now, what will this lap be from the Italian as he makes his way through the final chicane? And that's what we're waiting for. As Andre Jacqueline is into the pit from P11. Well, in fact, it was from P10. Well, it was P10, but he's released the place to what is Sorensen and dropped down to P11. And as Izzo comes across the line here, what was that? For 2:31. And with that mistake, or those little mistakes, we would say that was perhaps a 2:30 or a high 2:29 at best. I do not think that window has opened up yet. As the track now becomes greasy, it is continuing to dry here, but that window to go onto the slick compound is not quite there for a number of drivers yet. Nobody in our leader group wants to make the gamble, and we can tell you that right now Zabolov is absolutely flying in these conditions. Right, that previous lap was a 2:26.4, and right now he's onto a similar lap, and Tinko van der Velde on a 2:27.7 is not matching for pace. Zabolov is running with this one, and he is taking it all the way as he makes his way through Stavlo 2 and just continuing to push all the way to the end. As all of our battles right now have opened up to a degree, we're waiting to see how they all come back together come the end of the pit stop phase, as we're hearing that Nesta Maggia into the pits as well. But right now I think nobody of our leaders wants to make the switch over yet. They know it's not the right time, despite the fact that track is drying up as much as it possibly can. But as our drivers make their way on through, it is a situation whereby the risk is not worth it at this point in time. And meanwhile, Kevin Gelling continues around as well, having made both of his pit stops. Remember, he had to make a pit stop right at the start due to damage on the car. Now, could we potentially see the Intruder Racing Team driver here decide not to change off of the wet compound tyre at the end point of this race? Does he stay on the tyre all the way to the end? I think for the next 5 to 10 minutes he'll probably get away with it, but then in those final 10 minutes I can only imagine how hot that tyre is going to come. As Tinko van der Velde has reacted, he has decided enough is enough, as Haratojo is coming in front of him from P8 as well. These two have decided, okay, this tyre is not giving me the pace I want anymore. It is time to go to the slicks. Now, Oleg Zabolov, meanwhile, on a 2:25.6 that last time around. He is ripping lap time out of that tyre, left, right and centre. It is not phasing him whatsoever. And this is where the difficulty comes in, of course, because Tinko van der Velde, who is coming to the pit, now needs to get that tyre up to temperature and hunt down Zabolov. But the gap is up to 20 seconds if you assume they have identical pit stop times. And van der Velde, if he can close down 20 seconds in the remainder of this race, that would be an absolute achievement. But I think it's going to be the case. He's going to need a little bit of the racing gods on his side. As meanwhile, Kevin Gelling is also into the pits here from P9. He's decided enough's enough, so it will be a third pit stop for the Frenchman as he comes on in, and that will release a number of drives on through. And when see Sorensen staying out, he's decided to continue here, and this of course is in reaction to Andre Jacqueline pitting moments ago. And as a result, right now the Dane is pushing on. He's got Harry Phillips trying to chase him down here. We can see the Wild Things Racing driver making his way through Urujan Radion just behind as they make their way on towards the Kimmel Straight. You can see them both in the camera shot here as Harry Phillips continues to pursue. He's trying to find some water out, so he's trying to get those tyres cooled down, and you can see the bits of rubber coming off the compound as well. It is the case that the slick compound is now starting to fall off the cliff, and as they make their way around, I think this is going to be the final lap. We may see a massive influx of drivers coming in very shortly. Well, we'll soon find out as we wait to see whether Oleg Zabolov comes on in from the lead as he makes one for his courage, and also Rattel into the pits. And Rattel, of course, the Cosmos Racing Team driver and our highest placed Cosmos Racing Team driver as things currently stand, as they all make their way on through. And will Zabolov decide enough's enough as we see there the throwing moving out the way? He stays out once again. Zabolov is going to continue pushing this compound to the limit here, and as he crosses the timeline that time, it's another 2:25.6. Zabolov's consistency is astounding here, but I do wonder whether now he's pushing it a bit too far. We'll wait and find out, as meanwhile we can see here Andre Jacklin has just been passed by Chris Zoiga in the battle for P14, and Zoiga coming alive now with the transition. You see Dylan Tan in the rear of the pitch there, flashing his lights as if to say, hey guys, you've got a leader coming through here, don't mind if I do. But I think it's the case. Dylan Tan instead opting to go into the pits here, and this is in reaction to Tinko van der Velde pitting. Now, where is van der Velde out on circuit right now? Well, based on our timing data, van der Velde is most likely coming towards what is the end of his current lap. Well, no, in fact, he's making his way down towards what is campus right now. We'll have to wait and see how this plays out. But whilst he's making his way for his courage, he's coming out of the pits, I'm hearing is the case that Chris Zoiga, who is making his way out of La Source and up towards Uruj Radion, has got the clearance from what is Andre Jacklin here and is now chasing after Kevin Gellin. As we hear this, oh goodness me, and no, there is even more drama now as we head towards the end of this race. There's a stop and go 30-second penalty for Mikhail Rattel, the Cosmos Racing Team driver who was up in P7 after his pit stop. He's been called speeding in the pit lane, and this is a disaster for Team KRT, who were looking to have two drivers finish inside the top 10, and now Rattel is surely going to be dropping all the way down the order with that stop and go 30-second penalty. That is worth a minute of time given the length of the pit lane at what is Spa, and that is a disaster for Rattel as he makes his way around right now, and that is not good reading for the team as Sorensen's into the pits from what was P9, and this of course is for him to try and get ahead of what is Andre Jacklin, who has been battling with Chris Zoiga. Now, where is Jacklin out on circuit? Well, he's making his way through X corner right now. It's going to be close between these two. As meanwhile, Dylan Tan still in the pits, of course. And where is Tan in relation to Tinko van der Velde? Well, van der Velde right now is making his way through turn number 2. I think he's got Tan covered here as he makes his way up the hill. And indeed, he will take what is P3 back off of Tan. And as they make their way up the hill, we've got Cormac Ryan Meenan, who's staying out on circuit right now. And, well, he's up in P2 at this point, but we expect he will drop back down the order as he's got the Cortec racing machine of what is Giovanni Izzo right on his 6 right now. And Izzo a lap down, of course, from Ryan Meenan as they make their way down towards Brussels corner. Now, as they make their way on through it once again here with just over 15 minutes remaining, and again on that weather update I can tell you no rain is expected until the end of the race. Now, it is the case we're going to be having a drying race from this point onwards. You can see that behind how Izzo has got that pressure, and look who's behind Izzo. No wonder there is pressure, and that is Andres Mesa who's pursuing him right now as they make their way down through Pawn Corner. Now, as they come down through the left-hander here, it's the case Andres Mesa continuing to mount as much pressure as he possibly can, but he just simply needs to find a way to get into this fight, and to do so I think he's got to capitalise on the fact that Izzo is tucked in behind Ryan Meenan. And to give you an idea, by the way, in terms of the transition on the tyres, as we're hearing that Rattel is into the pits for his stop and go 30-second penalty, Izzo is lapping on the 228, Ryan Meenan the 228. Ryan Meenan has yet to switch off the wet tyre. It is the time to go to the slick. The crossover is now occurring, and as we can see here, Andres Mesa will be only too aware of the fact that Izzo, whilst he's tucked in behind what is Ryan Meenan, he can't really gain, and as a result Mesa needs to go on the charge here as Rattel into the pits. That stop and go 30-second penalty, that is going to drop him a sizable way down the order as Andres Mesa continues to hunt down the Italian ahead, and the Spaniard looking for it here, and as they make their way into the bus stop chicane, not this time around. 14.5 minutes to go for these guys, approximately 7 more laps remaining. And Andres Mesa will be all too aware now he needs to get a move on as they make their way onto another lap here, and they look down towards the La Source, and as they come all the way down to the braking zone, he can't quite find it for the time being. He has to wait patiently as I think Luke Whitehead into the pits here, and I think it may be the case that this is Whitehead's race over. He's been in the pits for a sizable amount of time, and I can't see any work being done on the car. I think they've called it a day, the pole position racing team. They've given it everything they can, and right now that does mean that if things finish as they are, this man right here, the number 66 driver of Tinko van der Velde, will take the championship win at the checkered flag. flag. We've still got to wait and see. Of course, anything can happen before the race ends. We're not saying we want anything else to happen, ladies and gentlemen. I can assure you right now, we do not want to see anything else happen whatsoever here. But it is the situation with Van der Velde right now. We'll literally be just with a finger and a prayer. We'll be hoping the car just gets to the end right now and nothing else happens, nothing unexpected happens. And indeed for Zabolov as well, I think it's the case that the S&P Racing Esports driver, who is continuing to stay on the wet compound here, he's just put in a 2:26.2. His lap times are starting to fall to a degree now. It is the case that the S&P Racing Esports driver is just pushing that compound all the way, as we're hearing that Cormac Ryan Meenan into the pits from what was P2. Tinker Van der Velde has taken the place back as a result, and meanwhile it is the case further around the circuit. We can see Chris Zoiger here holding off Andre Jacqueline, who is trying to hunt him down, but no way through for Jacqueline at this point in time, as I believe, unless I'm very much mistaken, we may have lost Harry Phillips, who was catching up to the back of this battle only moments ago. Well, no, my apologies. In fact, Harry Phillips in all this has got himself up into P7 with all of the pit stops that have been happening, and Harry Phillips right now finding a way to get himself back into this race, and what a way to do so after being involved in the incident at the start of the race and also getting a drive-through. It is the case that Harry Phillips in P7 right now and looking firmly placed to finish inside the top 10. Assuming he's got no more pit stops to do, but I don't think he has, as he makes his way on through there, Blanchimont corner. But meanwhile, we look from him to our P9 driver, Andres Mesa, who Phillips will be all too familiar with, of course. And it is the case that right now, Izo and Andres Mesa are trying to hunt down Phillips, but Phillips keeping the pace together and matching the pace of the two drivers behind, if not bettering it, as we see Andres Mesa continuing to try and get to Izo come the remainder of this race, as we've got a yellow flag somewhere out on circuit, and we see Andres Mesa into the pits. So he did have one more stop in the tank. Andres Mesa has decided it's time to call that other scheduled stop in, and it's a shame, of course. We would love to have seen Andres Mesa finish inside the top 10, but when he's got to stop, he's got to stop, and it is the case that right now that is his race. Going to see him drop down the order once again and relieve some of the pressure on Giovanni Izo, who I think will be breathing a huge sigh of relief that he doesn't have the Spanish bull charging after him from Distinct GG, as we can see the Quartet Racing driver making his way up the hill, and as they make the way across what is Erugian Radion and down towards what is Lake Cobb, it is the case Izo on course to pick up one of his season best performances as he makes his way down towards turn number 7. As we look from him to a bit further down the order, I can tell you that Andrew Jacqueline right now in P14, or P15 I should say, not P14, chasing down the driver in P14, and that is Chris Zoiger, as the Food Point Racing driver continuing to try and hound the Porsche driver, but these two starting to separate to a degree, and it's Jacqueline who is losing out compared to Zoiger in terms of the pace. As you can see, Rainer Evenstedt there trying to close up 4 seconds back, but inching closer as they make their way on through, and the track continues to dry up, as finally, after we're waiting for when this was going to happen, Oleg Zabolov is now into the pits for what is his final pit stop. He has taken that wet compound as far as it will possibly go, and he's decided, you know what, enough's enough. With 10 minutes remaining, it is time to go on to a set of slicks to bring this one home. Now, where is Van der Velde in all this? Well, Van der Velde right now is making his way out of X corner and down towards Pouhon. I think he's a bit too far back to capitalise here, but it does look as though Tinker Van der Velde will be comfortably coming home in P2 if things finish on the current trajectory that they're going on. We will wait and see, of course. And where is Dylan Tan? Well, Dylan Tan is a further 20 seconds back off of the back of Van der Velde right now and making his way through the right-hander of Vix there. And then we've got Vesfield in P4 who's making his way around the circuit. And Cormac Ryan Meenan has got Kruich behind him, and Kruich will, when the pit stop finished, this is how it's all played out. You can see it's the case that right now Kruich is behind Ryan Meenan. He's dropped out the top 5. He's very close to coming back into the top 5 as they make their way through turn number 6 and onto the Kentwell Straight. You can see Andres Mesa's come out in P12 behind, and Sorensen's a bit further back there, but right now Kruich are looking for that opportunities. We can see Ryan Meenan having to go defensive. There's a bit of contact between the two of them there, but no major incident as they make their way on through. We do ride on board here with the Aston Martin Racing drivers. He tries to find a way to get back into the top 5. As they make their way down into turn number 10 here into long right-hander, it is the case that Kruich trying to just stay very close to the back of the fray. There's not really an overtaking spot here. The next overtaking spot potentially is in the run to Pouhon, but it's the case he's going to have a really good exit out of X. No such favours being done there. And as they make their way now down the hill towards turn number 12, you can see it's the case Ryan Meenan initially going defensive and then deciding to come back onto that racing line at short notice. and Meenan's got to be careful of that, of course, because he will cost himself some time by doing that back and forth weaving, and Crutch backing off to this point. I think he's deciding, you know what, just wait for an opportunity, let the Ferrari ahead, give away his game plan, and then go for the move. We've still got 8.5 minutes to go. We've still got approximately 4 laps of these drivers, and right now Crutch just waiting for that opportunity to get himself closer once again as they make their way now into Stablo 1. You can see that Crutch going a little bit deep under braking, got the car back together, but he did go deep and had to use a snap downshift a second to really stop the car there. And as they make their way now out of turn number 16 and up towards Blanchimont, it's the case that the gap continues to hold at approximately half a second as they make their way into left-hander at turn 18. And let's listen in. They're having to use a downshift to fifth to push the car through the corner. Crutch really driving on the limit here of what's possible in the Aston Martin in order to try and close that gap. You can see Ryan Meenan going a little bit deep there into the chicane, but he brings it back together. Crutch looking rather composed towards the end of the lap, but really having to work hard through sector 2 in order to stay with the Ferrari driver. Meanwhile, the Ferrari driver having to literally rip the life out of that car in order to stay ahead through sector 3. As we can see Crutch getting very close under braking there. That was a bit too close for comfort, I must say. But as they make the way out of the source and now towards the Rouge and Radion, it could change at any point here between the two of them, but I do think for the time being Ryan Meenan is holding on to that position as they make their way now up the hill and on towards the Kemmel Straight they go very shortly. As we can see, the sun is now coming out as well. This track is only going to dry even more as meanwhile further down the order, I can tell you that in the battle for what is P14, it's Andre Jacquelin right now ahead of what is Chris Zoiger there and also René Effenstedt. And where's René Effenstedt, you ask? Well, he is only the best part of 7/10 of a second and closing behind Chris Zoiger here, as we do have the train of 3 drivers chasing after that P14 position. And as they make their way down the Kimmel Straight right now, no change between the 3. As they all come into the heavy braking zone, but all pushing as much as they can with 7 minutes remaining right now. And as they come through the sequence of corners, one thing I can tell you is that Tinko van der Velde has lost out. Well, hold on a second. I think we may have just seen a little bit of a moment from Tinko van der Velde in terms of our timing data, because that last lap from van der Velde a 2:27.9, and in this lap a 2:30.2. Now Dylan Tan, meanwhile, is lapping in the 2:22s. Well, that last lap was a 2:22. Tan a 2:21.8. I think Tan is absolutely stripping the life out of Tinko van der Velde's lead, and on this current rate of closure, Dylan Tan is taking 8.5 seconds out of van der Velde at the end of this race. Now for Tan, of course, this is critical to give him the best possible opportunity to finish well inside the top 5 when the championship is over, and Tan is on a mission. He has still got approximately 4 laps to go, including the one we're currently on, but he is in the hunt and he knows there is an opportunity here. We'll keep our eyes on that. Meanwhile, further down you can see Crutch there running wide out of what was Stablo 2. He's trying to hunt down Ryan Meenan. He's not close enough to go for a move, and Crutch having to push the track limits there. He's got to be careful, of course, gets too many runoffs and he will be subject to a drive-through penalty, but the S1 Racing driver, I'm sure, will be very aware of that as he makes his way through 18 and runs a bit wide once again there, and now charges after Ryan Meenan in the run down towards the bus stop chicane. As they come on through the right into left sequence here, and you can see they have got some traffic ahead of them, and particularly it's not helping Ryan Meenan out right now. I think that is Benjamin Aselli as they make their way down, but in the end Aselli moves out of the way and they go charging down towards turn number 1 here. It's not caused them too many issues, but it is the case that Ryan Meenan, I think, might have had his heart fluttering a little bit in terms of the fact, oh goodness me, now I've got somebody who's a lap down to try and contend with, as both drivers now make their way through 1 and onto 2 and then up the hill through Rouge and Radion once again. Meanwhile, further down, I can tell you that Giovanni Izzo all over the back of Harry Phillips right now. This is the battle for P7, and Izzo has been closing quite rapidly by 2 to 3 seconds a lap. And I think Harry Phillips at this point trying to bring that Bentley home as best as he can. I think Harry Phillips, to be fair, may still actually be on wet compound tyres as they make their way through what is Blanchimont, and you can see there Phillips making sure to give the space to Izzo, but in the end Izzo not able to find a way all the way around. Behind them, that is Haratojo getting into the mix, I believe, unless I'm very much mistaken. But regardless, as they make their way for a fact, I do not think that's Haratojo, unless I've made a mistake. No, it's not Haratojo. It's another one of the KRT drivers who's a bit further back, but it is the case that Izzo really putting that pressure on versus Harry Phillips as they make their way now down into turn number 1 once again. But meanwhile, speaking of drama, it's already happened. In fact, it happened when just as we were looking on camera. But Tinko van der Velde is struggling around here in the McLaren right now. And Dylan Tan is already back up into P2 and is flying now. He is lapping 6 seconds a lap faster than Zabolov ahead. But to be fair to Zabolov, who is now 40 seconds up the road from Tan, I do think it's the case that Zabolov right now could lose 10 seconds a lap and not be too worried. But Dylan Tan is flying here. The Ferrari driver is coming back strong, and if it were not for that mistake with regards to choosing to go on the wets a lap later than everybody else in the battle for lead, I think Tan right now could have been chasing back after lead. We will wait and see, but that is a surprise, but a welcome one to be sure. Meanwhile, it's the case that Harry Phillips here has lost out to Izo in the run, where it looks as though it's, well, the places have changed off camera there, and my apologies for missing that, ladies and gents, but they've traded places in the run down the Kibble Straight here, and Harry Phillips, I think, trying to bring the car home without having to make a third pit stop here. He's already made 2 pit stops, but Harry Phillips soldiering on as he makes his way through X corner here. It definitely looks as though he is dropping down the order gradually. I think those tyres are starting to get towards the end of their life. As you can see, the back marker behind, I think that is still Pantera tucked in very close behind, as we've got 3 minutes to go in this race. And, well, with regards to Zabolov is still on wets as well. Hold up a second. We just had that in the YouTube chat there. And thank you very much to what is Tristan Store and also So What. It's the case that Zabolov on wet tyres, and so is Tinker van der Velde. And the reason they've done this is because they thought they could hang it out. This could, well, if there's a risk of a puncture here right at the end of the race, running on wet tyres that are literally at their limit, this is going to be an absolutely huge run. I think Zabolov has got this one comfortably in the bag, but then it's up to whether the tyres can hold on right now. And Tinker van der Velde is dropping like a stone in terms of pace. He's got a huge gap to play with, however, compared to Vesfield behind. He's got a 38-second gap by the time they came to the end of Sector 1. So I think for van der Velde, he just needs to nurse his car home. But can he really afford to be taking this gamble when the championship is on the line? Well, I think in his mind the answer is yes. It's worth the gamble to try and get even more points. But as he makes his way right now through Stablo number 2 and heads around once again, we have got 2 more laps for our leaders right now, as there's only 2 minutes remaining. You can see Van der Velde here. He has got the back marker of Pantera trying to unlap himself right now. I think Van der Velde's just going to let him go, knowing there's no need to fight. But what about Tan? That is the question. Was Tan comes across the timing line this time? That lap was a 2:18.9 versus Zabolov at a 2:26.6. Well, right now Tan is lapping the best part of what is 8 to 9 seconds a lap faster, but that gap is not coming down fast enough. No way of playing it. I think right now Dylan Tan will be just comfortable in knowing that he has been one of the faster drivers. If he carries on at this rate and he sets the 2:17, he will be taking the fastest lap off of Zabolov right at the final curtain. Meanwhile, outside the top 10, but hunting a top 10 placement, it is Kevin Gelling here is hunting Amratel. Amratel going very slowly by the looks of things around the lap. And in fact, as they go side by side here across the timeline into turn number 1 into Lasource, Gelling pushing on here. And I think Rattel really struggling with the Ferrari as well. And as they make the way out of the corner, Gelling back up into the top 10 here and looking to end on a high as he makes his way through 2 and up towards Erugian Radion. A good pass there, and I think Rattel really now struggling with that car as we are getting another shake up in the order. We started off this race, of course, with 29 drivers. We are going to go on to finish it with 21. The rate of attrition here has been incredibly high due to an incident on the opening lap, well, multiple incidents on the opening lap, and also technical issues with some drivers' cars. As we see, there's a drive-through penalty for Andreas Sorensen, and this has come right to the final round. Andre Jacklin, who has been battling with him non-stop. That drive-through penalty, we'll just take a look as to whether it has come on through, and where it is the case. We've got a 10-second penalty being applied to one driver, albeit we haven't seen that appear on our board. But that drive-through penalty for Sorensen is for an unsafe rejoin, which caused contact with car number 88. And with car number 88, I believe, who's not racing anymore in this race. Oh, there it is. It's Giovanni Izzo who's racing in this race. My apologies. And that is what Sorensen has received the penalty for. As you can see, Andrew Jacklin there flashing his lights, I think, to try and say, look, there's no need to battle. Meanwhile, Chris Zoiger here making his way on through. And meanwhile, as he crosses the line here, he comes to the end on lap number 49. We thought he had one more lap. It is Oleg Zabolov who takes the win at Spa in these tricky conditions. And whilst he gave it everything he can, Dylan Tan will not take the win, but instead, as he comes around to complete his final lap, it will be Dylan Tan who finishes in P2 as he crosses the line and takes the fastest lap on a 2:18.3. But right now, the driver who many will be waiting to see cross the line as he flashes his lights here and makes his way through Blanchimont corner, it is going to be Tico van der Velde. He went into this one as an outsider in terms of a chance of taking the championship win, and as he makes his way into the braking zone right now, he's done enough. He's brought the car home, he's stayed out of the trouble, and as he comes out the final corner, it will be Tico van der Velde who takes third, but more importantly takes the win in the championship at what is the Intercontinental Challenge Championship for 2021 as he crosses the line. Now I think he's run out of fuel literally at the finish line, and then it will be Vesfield in the end, as he slowly makes his way across the line. Now I think Tico van der Velde just enjoying that moment and creeping across the line. Indeed he is. And meanwhile, then we're going to have Vesfield, who finishes in P4. A brilliant drive for the Intruder Racing team driver. His best performance of the season, no doubt, and bringing it home. And then completed our top 5 in the end was Cormac Ryan Meenan. A great drive for FS Racing. And the Irishman finally having his day in the sun as he crosses the line. There with Christian Krivic coming home in P6. And a brilliant battle between these two. Giovanni Izzo has come across the line in P7. Harry Phillips in the end at P8. He's already into the pits. But right now, and Maher Haratojo in P9, and it's Kevin Gelling in P10, as I think a number of drivers here doing donuts. We look to the helicam to see our drivers doing the donuts here, and you can see particularly the two Intruder Racing team drivers who I think have had a bit of a knockabout. They may have to be careful because the stewards do take a look at this, as we see Andreas Sorensen with an 80-second penalty being added to his race time for the drive-through penalty. But right now, Tico van der Velde, who's parked up there right in the middle of all of it happening around him, and indeed the Team Tolki driver very, very happy with that performance. I think absolutely speechless. But what a brilliant end to the race, and indeed Oleg Sobolov in the end in the pit. We'll hear from our race winner, our second place man, and also our third place man and championship winner very shortly, ladies and gentlemen. But what a race. Do not go anywhere. You won't want to miss our post-race podium interviews. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, well, what a way to end the season of the Intercontinental Challenge Championship in the GT3 class. A fantastic set of races, but indeed a very challenging race in the end in round number 5. And Spa had everything. It had a major incident on the opening lap, it had changing weather all the way through, and also had some great battles up and down the circuit and the reaction to the changing conditions, which we saw from a number of drivers. And we have heard that Tinko van der Velde had punches literally crossed the finish line. He just made it across the line with punctured tyres, and my goodness, what a fine margin to end the race on. And we are going to start off tonight by starting with our third place man, Tinko van der Velde, also our championship winner. Let's hear from him and get him into the interview room. Hello, Tinko, can you hear me?
Yeah, hello, what's up?
Tinko, I have to ask, how does it feel to be crowned the Intercontinental Challenge Championship winner for 2021 as part of the NXTGEN Racing series?
It feels really good, thanks, man. It was a insane series, thank you so much for that, and I didn't expect this at all, because I was not really the favorite here, because I was P3, and I won, so yeah, really great.
Now, dissecting it all, I think you're probably having it flash by your eyes right now in terms of how did it all happen, but taking it all the way back to the start of this race, qualifying, quite a challenging session for yourself, but you seem to have a good qualifying session despite the conditions, putting yourself on the third row. Was that where you wanted to be, or do you feel as though there was a bit more out there to get yourself towards the front?
No, there was way more out there. I was on the previous lap, I was actually more up, but I had to pit because I had no more fuel. And then I picked the dries because the session was drying out. And for some reason the track still stayed really wet, so I only improved this slightly on the dries. But yeah, I think it could have been a lot better on pole, but because in practice it looked really good for me. But yeah, still it's solid, it's not too bad. And yeah, my rivals, Ogodnikov started next to me, or no, not Ogodnikov, Cherepenin started next to me. And yeah, unfortunately made a mistake and crashed, but yeah, it was a good starting position.
Indeed, in starting from the third row, at the start we saw you make it through all the chaos that occurred in the run to turn 6 and onto the Kemmel Straight. Just take us through where you were in all of that, because by sounds of things, you literally dodged a bullet when Cherepenin got it wrong.
Yeah, I just thought let's hang it around the outside, why not? And I left him plenty of space, but he just went full throttle and hit me a little bit. So luckily I didn't spin and could move on. And then I thought like, okay, let's just play this clean, because Luke was all the way back in qualifying and Cherepenin just crashed. So I planned to play it safe, but then immediately I started to make a mistake and I spun Messa. I'm really sorry for that, but then I just played it clean, didn't take too many risks.
Understandable, and we saw the 10-second penalty that was given to yourself for the contact with Andres Mason, of course dealing with that in the first pit stop, and really coming onto the pit window with those changing conditions. We went from the dry to the wet and then back to the dry. How did you gauge that in terms of how it affected your strategy? Because surely you must have had to have reacted or changed your strategy with those changing conditions.
Oh yeah, it was so stressful. I just this really first time with so many changing conditions for me, so I didn't really know what the fast strategy was. Actually, on the first time it went to wet, I actually span as well because I went one lap too long and I was changing all stuff in my MFD to change tires, good pressures and stuff, and didn't really pay attention, so I span. But then, yeah, I pitted and then I thought like, let's stay on these wets. But then at the end it started to dry out again, so it was really hard to decision either stay on wet or take dries. But the track stayed pretty wet in the beginning, so I thought let's stay on wets, but then it dried out so quickly. I ended the race with like 34 psi on my wets. I was really scared to get a puncture, but when I was doing donuts, I actually got a puncture. So
Oh, goodness me. Just taking us through that towards the end, we saw how you managed to get ahead of Tan by picking the right time to jump onto the wets, but you decided not to come off the wets in that final stage. What was the logic behind that? Was that to try and save time, or was it you felt that you could go to the end as the track was drying?
yeah, I didn't get the message the slick tires were optimum yet. So normally when you get that message, you can still do like 5-6 laps on the wets and do equal times. And I didn't get it yet, so I thought wet's gonna be for sure, if not as quick, a little bit quicker. So and also I saved like 20 seconds in a pit stop by not changing tires. So I thought for sure that was the better strategy, but it dried out way quicker than I thought. So then I had to really drive slowly to not overheat my tires, but I managed to do it.
Well, that's absolutely brilliant to hear. And then when you came to the finish line, we saw you just slow yourself down as you were making your way up to the finish line. What was going through your mind when you were about to cross the line P3 and knowing you were going to take the championship?
Oh, I was really happy, but I don't know why my car just didn't accelerate anymore. I had fuel in there, but I switched to TC off because I wanted to do donuts. But suddenly when I switched to TC off, my engine stopped working and it was still on. So I don't know what happened. Then I switched to TC1 again and it worked again. So that was not my intention to go slow there, but yeah, I was really happy.
Oh, well, that's brilliant to hear. And it was a very hard earned third place indeed to take the championship in the end. A perfect way to wrap up the series. And now looking ahead to 2022, what are your plans for 2022 in the sim racing world?
Uh, just keep on sim racing a lot. Also, if there's any more championships here in NXTGEN, I'd like to join because this season has been great, and I really the admins and the commentator you have done a great job. So I'm looking forward to more.
Well, we look forward to having you back, and there will be a little bit about upcoming series in 2022 at the end of this broadcast. And the short answer is I think sign-ups are going to open in early January, so you may be wanting to watch out for that. But we would love to have you back, Tinko. It's been a joy to see you out on circuit, and well, as our reigning champion, it's only right you're given the opportunity to defend your championship going into 2022.
Yeah, sounds good. I'd like to do that. So
Oh.
yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Well, until then, congratulations on the third place and the championship win. And well, from all of us here at NextGen, well done on a fantastic pair of results. A Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to you, sir.
Merry Christmas. Thank you.
To hearing there from Tinko van der Velde, very happy, and I think it's just setting in right now. He's in that state of mind where he's very happy and joyous. But I think later on, give it sort of 5-10 minutes, he might erupt in absolute joy in terms of the fact that it's just worked out so well and a brilliant drive. And in the end, making it home on those wet tyres, it was very, very tricky. But he managed to keep it together when all was said and done, and a well-earned championship at the very end. Of course, he was the outsider going into this round, and we did have to see both of our championship contenders, our primary championship contenders, Danila Cherepenin and Luke Whitehead, lose out at the start of the race in order for what was Tinko van der Velde to really come into prominence. But it was looking good from the outset, with Whitehead struggling in qualifying and Cherepenin being alongside van der Velde at the start of the race, and it worked out in the end. And that's sometimes the way it goes in motorsport. But now we go from Tinko van der Velde to our second place man of what is Dylan Tan. Let's get the Singaporean into the interview room and hear what he's got to say. As we just bring him in now. Hello, Dylan. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can.
Dylan, a great drive from yourself to finish in second place. How's it feel to have finished second on the podium?
It feels great to finish second on the podium. I had a good qualifying, and during the dry stint, I did well. But when it started raining, I just didn't do good. The car wasn't good.
We saw that driving very fast at the start of the race, comfortable on the dry tyre. What made you decide to stay on the dry for longer than anybody else when the rain came?
basically I thought I could go one more lap and will not lose that much time, as I didn't think that the track would get that wet so quickly.
I see. And then when you went on to wet tyres, what was difficult about the wet tyre compared to the dry?
There definitely was lesser grip for me, so I had to go slower, and my time was a lot slower than the first place.
I see. And then when the track started to dry again, you were the fastest of anyone. You got the fastest lap on the final lap. What was it like hunting down Van der Velde and also Zabolov?
It felt intense. I thought I wouldn't even make it. I wouldn't overtake them. So it was good.
Oh, that's brilliant to hear. And now looking ahead, what are your plans sim racing wise for 2022?
Definitely to join this series again, as it was very fun, and there were a lot of competitive driver, and the organizers organized it very well.
Oh, that's brilliant to hear, Dylan. Well, with that, congratulations on second place today and also a fantastic drive, which I think means that in the end you finished, I think it's third place in the championship, although I'm not 100% sure. We'll get that confirmed, of course, later on this week, but still a fantastic drive. And well, with that, we wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year from all of us at NXTGEN.
Thank you.
So hearing there from Dylan Tan, who whilst I think very excited with that win, of course, and also exhausted with regards to the win. A great driver. And talking about there, he really enjoyed those dry conditions. And we saw that in qualifying, just how strong his qualifying pace was. And in the end, he managed to get himself on pole and found himself in a very unique position. And he was holding off the charge from Oleg Zalobov going through the opening stint of the race. But when the wet weather came, as Tam was saying there, struggled with the wet tyre because it didn't offer as much grip as he would have liked. And then in the end, as one of those situations whereby with that loss of grip it started to cost him massive time, but he enjoyed that hunt in the end, that hunt on the dry compound tyre versus Tinko van der Velde and Oleg Zalobov. And you can imagine if Tan had just had a little bit more comfort on that wet compound, could we have seen him come all the way back into the lead at the very end? Well, it's a what if statement, but also hearing there how much he enjoyed the series, and we definitely look forward to having him back next year if he does decide to come back. Fingers crossed he does. Great driver, and I think the Singaporean will do very well in future series. But with that, we now come on to our winner, Oleg Zalobov, and unfortunately he's not going to be available for an actual interview, ladies and gentlemen, but I have had the opportunity through text messaging to be able to get some words out of Oleg Zalobov, which he'd like me to pass on. And what he'd say firstly is congratulations to his rivals. He had a fantastic race with Dylan Tan foremost, and also Tinko van der Velde. Really enjoyed that dynamic of the three of them coming together over the three stints in very different conditions and the back and forth battle between the three of them. And overall, he found it to be an exciting championship. Really enjoyed the championship. Nice competing with such a strong field of rivals, and he's had so much joy out of it. And I do wonder whether that means we could potentially be seeing him come back in 2022. But until then, a brilliant drive from Oleg, and indeed a fantastic drive from S&P Racing Esports, #1 man of the day, in order to bring home that result. And whilst it wasn't to go the way of Danila Cherepenin in the championship, I think S&P Racing Esports will be happy with how things have played out, all things considered, and definitely be looking to bounce back. Will they move on to another series or come back for next gen in 2022? You can imagine they will be raring to go. But speaking of raring to go, unfortunately, with that, it's now time for us to be raring to go to say thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen, because that is the conclusion of the Intercontinental Challenge Championship in the GT3 class for NXTGEN Racing, as brought to you on the Assetto Corsa Competitione sim racing platform in 2021. And if you do want to know more about the NXTGEN Racing community, why not check us out our official website, that is nextgenracing.co.uk. Alternatively, our Facebook group, it's facebook.com/groups/NXTGEN Racing. Also, a huge thank you to our partners without whom this series would not have been possible, and we really must give it up for the Sim Grid and also Coach Dave Academy. Now, as for next time, of course, we will not have another race next week, ladies and gentlemen, but I'd like to sit sit back now and say to you that Next Gen Racing will be back with even more Assetto Corsa Competizione based championships in 2022. We have championships on PC and console, but focusing on the PC based championships, of course, although you never know what could happen with the arrival of the new Next Gen consoles, and indeed the Next Gen version of Assetto Corsa Competizione on consoles as well. But we will be bringing back even more championships in 2022, and the sign-ups for the next championship are expected to open currently on Monday the 3rd of January 2022. So if you're sat there right now saying, how can I get involved? How can I get involved in this intense racing action, have the opportunity to win big prizes? Get ready to sign up on Monday the 3rd of January, because we're going to have those sign-up forms open, and we will be looking to accommodate as many drivers as humanly possible. Indeed, whilst we always open things up for one split, we have had a number of instances where we've been close to filling a second split. And well, whilst the specific details for the next championship have yet to be confirmed, I can assure you one thing now: if this championship and the 2 European GT3 seasons have been anything to go by, it's going to be tight, it's going to be tense, and it's going to be tricky, and it will push each and every one of our drivers to the limit, and you will not want to miss it. Of course, until then, we need to get through the Christmas holidays. Well, I say we need to get through them with the absence of sim racing competitions, of course. It may be a little bit of drought, but all the same, ladies and gentlemen, a last word from us all here at Next Gen Racing. We wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Obviously, at the moment, life has been tough with everything that's happening around us, but of course, sim racing bringing us all together, and we can all enjoy the virtual motorsporting experience, and we hope you have enjoyed the programme throughout. And if you have, be sure to let us know. Be sure to let us know on our website, on our Facebook page, and wherever you can find us. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, it is goodbye from us here at Next Gen Racing. It is goodbye from me, your commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit. And until 2022, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.